Chapter 3988. Why did it insist on pestering her? Yun Chujo probably saw through Wu Yun's thoughts and added, "If you think that being struck to death by lightning is too easy for me, how about this? If I lie to you, I'll drown in water and burn to death by fire. Is that all right?" When Wu Yun heard Yun Chujio's words, he more or less believed her. The main thing was that he had no choice even if he didn't believe her. He really couldn't do anything to this stinky girl. Wu Yun pondered for a moment and decided to give it another try. If this stinky girl still lied to him, Wu Yun trembled at the thought of this and drifted away. After Wu Yun drifted a distance away, he finally remembered that he was most likely deceived again. There was no such thing as an oath of inner demons in the towering sky continent. What was the use of that stinky girl swearing an oath? However, it did not have any way to deal with Yun Chujio, so it could not help but feel sad. When it came here it was filled with joy and joy, but now, if it did not react fast enough, it might have been kidnapped by that damned girl again, and it would not be able to live this life anymore. Wu Yun's life would not be able to live, but Hei Shinjo was grinning from ear to ear. Xiao Mogu and Xiao Hanio were not the only ones who were full from the lightning. Even the three ancestors in her body had absorbed a lot of lightning power. She did not have to worry about cultivation for a short period of time. Her spiritual power level had also risen from the 5th level to the 8th level. Her cultivation speed was simply amazing. However, this fellow felt that she had just broken through not long ago, so he still adjusted her spiritual power level to the 5th level and waited for the opportunity to show her true spiritual power level. Although it was the second half of the night, after the dark clouds dispersed, there were still many people who came to watch. Even Master Ouyang had sent people to inquire about it. Yun Chujio had already thought of an excuse. She pointed at the large and small deep pits in the courtyard and said, "Wu Yun is just trying to scare me. In fact, there aren't many lightning strikes on my body." When the crowd saw the deep pits and Yun Chujio's lively appearance, they were skeptical. However, there was no other explanation. It couldn't be that this wretched girl had really endured the heavenly lightning, right? After everyone dispersed in groups of 2 or 3, Yun Chujio did not care about the messy courtyard. She turned around and entered the house. Not long after, she fell asleep. While she was half asleep, she felt a pain in her dantian. When Yun Chujio woke up, she saw clusters of red mist continuously surging into the house and sneakily approaching her. Yun Chujio took out the relic and chased the red mist out of the house. She had a premonition that as time passed, the threat of the relic to the murderous aura became smaller and smaller. Her originally happy mood was suddenly clouded by a layer of shadow. Why did the bloody murderous aura pester her so much? Did she really look like a devil who liked to kill? The next day, Yun Chujio only got up when the sun was high in the sky. As soon as she opened the door, she was surrounded by the murderous aura. From afar, Yun Chujio looked like she was surrounded by a layer of red mist. Yun Chujio took out the relic and cursed Tian Dao. She finally scared the murderous aura away a little. After all, the thunder last night had scared them. The murderous aura gathered at the place where the swing was. It was jumping and jumping. It was obvious that they wanted to play on the swing. If there was no swing, they would make a scene. Yun Chujio was so angry that she was twitching. What kind of bad luck did she have to provoke these things? Chapter 3989. The miserable Zhao Hui. Yun Chujio was angry, but she still said to the murderous aura, "The gate and the restriction of the courtyard have been broken. I have to get someone to fix it. If you don't want to be discovered, leave this place quickly. Come back after you're done." The murderous aura didn't know if it understood or not, but it didn't move. Yun Chujio ignored them and directly left the courtyard to find someone to repair the courtyard. The killing aura lingered in the courtyard unwillingly for a while before finally dissipating. Yun Chujio went to the courtyard's miscellaneous affairs hall and explained her purpose. The person in charge, Steward Xia, did not make things difficult for her. He only explained that repairing the courtyard and the array formation required sect contribution points. Yun Chujio did not lack contribution points from the sect, so she naturally did not care about it. Moreover, when she was repairing the courtyard, Yun Chujio gave some spirit stones to the servants and asked them to expand the courtyard. The servants saw that the courtyard was empty, so they did not refuse. They immediately helped Yoon Chujo to double the area of the courtyard and left after repairing it. Almost as soon as they left, the drifters came. Since the yard had doubled in size, they jumped even more happily. Yoon Chujo sighed and started to build the swing. This time she built 2 swings at once. When the murderous aura saw that the swing was ready, they jumped excitedly. Finally, they did not bother Yoon Chujo anymore. Just as Yoon Chujo was sighing, the drifters suddenly jumped into the house. Yoon Chujo was so angry that she was about to chase them away when she heard the sound of footsteps outside the courtyard. She opened the courtyard door and saw that it was Zhao Hui who had brought a few people who usually practice sword formations over. Junior sister Yoon, the test will be in a few days. I think it's better for us to hurry up and practice, Zhao Hui said. Zhao Hui had come to visit Yoon Chujo last night. After knowing that she was safe and sound, he brought some people over to practice the sword formation. Yoon Chujo nodded. She felt that it was okay to practice a little. Although she already knew how to operate the Yaoguang position in her heart, Zhao Hui was still a little lacking. She could just treat it as accompanying him to practice. Moreover, Yoon Chujo was also in the mood to learn how to operate the other positions, so she readily agreed. Thus, everyone stood according to their positions and began to practice the sword formation. Zhao Hui and the others did not leave until evening. Before leaving, Zhao Hui said, "Junior sister Yoon, after your courtyard has been expanded, it's very convenient to use it to practice the sword formation. It's both spacious and quiet. Why don't we continue to practice here tomorrow?" Yoon Chujo nodded. She also felt that practicing in her own courtyard was not bad. Moreover, with other people around, those drifters would not dare to appear. It was simply killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Therefore, for 2 consecutive days, Zhao Hui and the others went to Yoon Chujo's courtyard to practice the sword formation with her. As expected, those drifters avoided them the moment they saw someone coming. Yoon Chujo was pleased in her heart. It seemed that this was not a bad idea. On this day, Zhao Hui still brought people over to practice the sword formation excitedly. However, as he practiced, Zhao Hui fell on his butt. Zhao Hui was stunned by the fall. Although his spiritual power wasn't that great, he wouldn't fall for no reason. It was most likely because he didn't pay attention earlier and was a little more careful this time. However, very quickly he fell on his butt again. Moreover, he fell even more violently than before. He practically broke his butt into 8 pieces. Chapter 3990 Sword Formation formed by the drifters. Zhao Hui looked embarrassed and laughed dryly. "Maybe I didn't sleep well yesterday. I'm sorry. Others did not know, but Yoon Chujo saw it clearly. There were a few wisps of mist around Zhao Hui's feet that were so faint that one would not notice them. They were the ones that tripped Zhao Hui. Yoon Chujo thought for a moment and knew that the drifters probably thought that Zhao Hui was staying in the courtyard and did not want to leave, so they wanted to teach him a lesson. As expected, Zhao Hui continued to fall, and each fall was worse than the last. It was simply too horrible to look at. Yoon Chujo looked at the bruised and swollen Zhao Hui and held back her laughter. "Senior brother Zhao, my courtyard might not match your figure. Why don't we go back to the same place to practice tomorrow?" Zhao Hui was stunned. Although he did not believe in the issue of 8 characters or 8 characters. In order to ease the awkwardness, he could only follow Yoon Chujo's words and say, "Junior sister Yoon, you're right. I'm 80% not used to the feng shui here. Let's go to the same place to practice tomorrow." The other 5 people could not help but laugh. However, they were all here for the reward, so they naturally would not raise any objections. After Zhao Hui and the others left, Yoon Chujo sneered and said, "You guys are really shameful. You actually used such a little trick. Bah! Shameless." The murderous aura was obviously thicker than Buttface's skin. No matter how Yoon Chujo scolded, she was still alive and kicking on the swing as if she hadn't heard anything. Yoon Chujo couldn't do anything to these drifters. She directly entered the house and turned a blind eye to them. While Yoon Chujo was cultivating, she heard Buttface shout, little fairy, come out quickly. There's something interesting." Yoon Chujo had no choice but to stop cultivating and enter the courtyard. Buttface pointed at the front with his paw and said, "Little fairy, look." Yoon Chujo looked in the direction that Buttface was pointing at, and was surprised to find 7 balls of red mist jumping around. However, they were jumping in the same direction as the 7 people in the Big Dipper sword formation. Yun Chujio originally thought that the red mist was just an imitation out of curiosity. However, when she looked at her, her expression became serious. The red mist seemed to be jumping around randomly, but the sequence. After careful consideration, it was actually much more mysterious than the original Big Dipper sword formation. Yun Chujio did not know if she was hallucinating. What she saw was no longer the 7 balls of red mist. Instead, it was 7 figures holding swords practicing the Big Dipper sword formation. Yun Chujio was very engrossed as she watched. The more she watched, the more she felt that the original Big Dipper sword formation was full of holes. It was like a sieve that was waiting to be slaughtered. The improved Big Dipper sword formation was not only a few times more powerful than before, but it also had very few holes. It could be said that it was 100 times stronger than the previous Big Dipper sword formation. Yun Chujio was mesmerized by it. She only came back to her senses after Dog 2 patted her a few times with its claws. However, when she looked again, she did not see any red figures. They were just a bunch of wandering vagabonds. Yun Chujio asked Dog 2 excitedly, "Dog 2, do you see those red figures?" Dog 2 was dumbfounded. "What red figures? Little fairy, are you possessed? Isn't it just 7 lumps of red fog that formed the shape of the Big Dipper sword array? Those fluttering figures were probably formed out of curiosity. Why are you so fascinated by them?" Yun Chujio shook her head. Perhaps she was hallucinating because she had been studying the Big Dipper sword formation recently. Chapter 3991 Sword Formation Assessment. Yun Chujio recalled the sword formation she saw just now. She didn't care whether it was an illusion or not. She immediately wanted to find someone to practice it and see the effect. However, it wasn't easy to find someone else to practice it, so she turned her attention to those dumb cubs. However, although the dumb cubs had intelligence, they were spiritual pets after all. How could they learn sword techniques? Only Meng Yanshou could pry into more dreams, so he was able to learn most of them. Yun Chujio glared at the drifters on the swing. If it weren't for these hateful things stealing the 3 puppet discs that she had just refined, she could have used 5 puppets and curly hair to form the Big Dipper sword formation. There weren't enough people, so Yun Chujio could only put this matter aside temporarily and prepare to practice it again when she had the chance. A few days later, the assessment of the sword formation began. The assessment method was very direct. Every 2 groups would fight and cross each other. In other words, in the end, each group had to fight with the other groups. Wan Qingba observed the reactions of each disciple, and finally determined the result. Li Zhuangji and the others looked at Yun Chujio with a hint of malice in their eyes. In a while, the assessment would be a good time for them to take revenge. "Stupid girl, just wait for your bad luck." During the first 4 rounds of fighting, Li Zhuangji and the others behaved fairly and did not do anything. In the last round of fighting, the 5 of them exchanged glances with each other. Therefore, during the fight, the 5 of them only did their work and did not put in any effort. Soon Yun Chujio and her group fell into a disadvantageous position. At this time, Li Zhuangji, who was in the position of Tianshu, shouted, "We can't hold on anymore. Transform into the 5 elements sword formation and retreat." The moment Li Zhuangji said this, it meant that he had given up on Kai Yang and Yeagang's positions, Zhao Hui and Yun Chujio. As expected, the other group immediately shifted their focus of attack to Yun Chujio and Zhao Hui. They felt that if they could take down Yun Chujio and Zhao Hui, then they would obtain a decisive victory in this round of competition. Since that was the case, why not? Li Zhuangji and the others looked at them coldly and were secretly delighted. Yun Chujio, the stinky girl, was definitely going to be eliminated. However, before that, they still had to teach her a lesson. Therefore, the 5 of them claimed that they were protecting her and Zhao Hui, but in fact they were hindering them in every way. There were even a few times when their swords almost pierced Yun Chujio's body. The 5 of them were secretly resentful. Why couldn't they pierce that stinky girl? They were really lucky. Wan Qingba, who was watching from the side, did not stop them. He was thinking whether he should eliminate Yun Chujio and Zhao Hui or use a long line to catch the big fish. In the end, Yun Chujio's group was defeated by the other group. A trace of ridicule flashed in Yun Chujio's eyes. If she tried her best, she would naturally be able to turn the tide of the battle. However, if Wan Qingba was determined to eliminate her, she had no other way. Since that was the case, why should she reveal her strength? Moreover, even if she was disqualified from learning the sword array, she still had plenty of ways to steal it. How could it be difficult for her? Unexpectedly, Yun Chuzhou and Zhao Hui were not eliminated during the final evaluation. Wan Qingba even praised them a few times. It was just that they were willing to sacrifice themselves and their spirit for the sake of the whole team. Li Zhuangji, Chen Bufan, and the others were almost angered to death. Didn't they say that martial uncle Wan disliked Yun Chuzhou the most? Why was he still speaking up for her? Yun Chuzhou was also a little surprised. However, she did not think that Wan Qingba had any good intentions. He must have other tricks up his sleeve. She would just have to deal with them as they came. Chapter 3992. The melancholic drifter. After Wan Qingba had finished commenting on everything, he continued, "Your use of the array formation is not bad, but you still lack actual combat experience. I have already suggested to the sect that we send you out to carry out sect missions in a few days. At that time you can all increase your actual combat experience." Yun Chuzhou immediately understood Wan Qingba's sinister intentions. In the sect, Li Zhuangji and the others could at most injure her a little. However, if they went out to carry out missions, even if they killed her, no one would be able to find out anything. He was truly sinister and vicious. Zhao Hui was quick-witted and immediately understood Wan Qingba's intentions. His face couldn't help but reveal a worried expression. However, Li Zhuangji and the others had a vicious look in their eyes. "Yun Chuzhou, your time has come." After Wan Qingba left, Chen Bufan walked in front of Yun Chuzhou and said with a fake smile, "Junior sister Yun, when the time comes, senior brother will definitely take good care of you. You will never forget it for the rest of your life." Yun Chuzhou glanced at him and said, "Senior brother Chen, thank you very much. However, it is time for you to pay back the money. Do you want to pay back the money, or do you want me to take the materials for you?" Chen Bufan's face turned ugly. In the end, he gritted his teeth and handed over 30,000 upper-grade spirit stones to Yun Chuzhou. He thought that Yun Chuzhou would pay back the money with interest when the mission was carried out, so he didn't mind giving it to her first. Yun Chuzhou followed the law and asked for 50,000 high-grade spirit stones from Li Zhuangji before leaving with Zhao Hui. Zhao Hui had a worried look on his face. "Junior sister Yun, Li Zhuangji and the others hate you to the bone. If they were to go out to carry out the mission, they would definitely resort to underhanded means." Yun Chuzhou laughed lightly. "If they don't resort to underhanded means, then it would be considered lucky for them. If they dare to harm us, then they wouldn't need to return to the sect." Although Yun Chuzhou's tone was very casual, Zhao Hui could hear the intent of killing from it. He couldn't help but shiver and didn't say anything more. He didn't know if it was his misconception, but he felt that junior sister Yun seemed to be different. He didn't know how exactly she was different, but in short, she was becoming more and more frightening. After Yun Chuzhou and Zhao Hui separated, they returned to their own courtyard. As usual, the drifters shamelessly approached Yun Chuzhou, wanting to enter her glabella. Yun Chuzhou gritted her teeth and chased them away again. Finally, she chased them off to the swing. She looked at the drifters and felt that it was not bad to go out and do missions. At least she could temporarily get rid of these drifters. After all, these drifters wouldn't follow her out of the sect. Besides, with these drifters looking after the courtyard for her, she was not afraid that someone would come and cause trouble. Yun Chuzhou thought of this and said to the drifters, "In a few days, I will go out to do some missions. It might take 10 days to half a month. You guys take good care of the courtyard for me, understand?" The drifters suddenly stopped jumping. She did not know if it was Yun Chuzhou's misconception, but she felt that these drifters looked like little wives who had been abandoned. They were all drooping their heads and looking very melancholic. Yun Chuzhou laughed at herself. She was 80% sure that she hadn't slept well recently. These damn drifters weren't melancholic at all. She was the one who was melancholic. 3 days later, a sect mission was indeed given. Yun Chuzhou went to the bounty hall of the middle court and received the mission file. She glanced at the contents. There was no suspense about the composition of the personnel. It was just Li Zhuangji, Chen Bufan and the others. However, after seeing the mission, Yun Chuzhou raised her eyebrows slightly. This mission was really unique. Chapter 3993. Golden Dragon's Ambergris. The mission written on the mission file was actually to search for the Golden Dragon's Ambergris. This Golden Dragon's Ambergris was the secretion of the sea beast, the giant mink bloodthirsty whale. After it swallowed some sea beasts, the bones in them were not safely digested. After it combined with the secretion in the intestines of the giant mink bloodthirsty whale. Finally, it formed the Golden Dragon's Ambergris. The Golden Dragon incense could emit a strange fragrance. Not only could it be made into powder and other items that female cultivators liked, but most importantly, it could be used to refine many high-level medicinal pills. Therefore, the Golden Dragon incense had always been a good thing that was in short supply. Of course, when the Golden Dragon incense was just expelled from the body of the giant mink bloodthirsty whale, it did not have any fragrance. On the contrary, the smell was very unpleasant. Only after being washed by the seawater for decades or even hundreds of years, and removing the impurities in it, could it become a treasure sought after by everyone. The lighter the color of the 1,000 gold dragon's ambergris, the longer it was immersed in the seawater, the better its quality was. On the contrary, the darker the color, the shorter the time it was immersed in the seawater, the worse its quality was. A piece of white golden dragon incense was even more precious than hundreds of pieces of brown golden dragon incense. However, it had been a long time since anyone had found a piece of white golden dragon incense. However, even though the golden dragon incense was so tempting, the risk of obtaining it was still very high. Only disciples of large sects like the Nameless Sword sect dared to enter the relevant sea areas to search for the golden dragon incense. This was because the sea areas where the 1,000 golden dragons' saliva appeared were usually infested with high-level sea beasts. To those sea beasts, the 1,000 golden dragons' saliva was like bait for humans to fish. They continuously used the 1,000 golden dragons' saliva to lure cultivators over, and then kill them. Yun Chuzhou was recalling the incident regarding the 1,000 golden dragons' saliva in her mind when Zhao Hui walked over with a mission file in his hand. His expression was one of despair. "Junior sister Yun, I'm afraid that we're really doomed this time. You might not know this, but the sea area of the Blood Sand Island we're going to is very dangerous. Let alone Li Zhuangji and the others, even if they don't have any other intentions, we might not be able to escape unscathed." Yun Chuzhou couldn't help but think after hearing Zhao Hu's words. Wan Qingbao's move was quite ruthless. Was he planning to kill Li Zhuangji and the others as well? However, wasn't Manager Li one of Elder Wan's men? Was this an internal struggle? After hearing the news, Manager Li really rushed to see Elder Wan. "Elder Wan, I only have Zhuangji as a son. How can I let him go to such a dangerous sea area like the Blood Sand Island? Think of a way to help him change to another mission." Elder Wan seemed to have expected Manager Li to come. He smiled and said, "Don't worry. Although the Blood Sand Island is very dangerous, it's not as mysterious as the legends say. Just prepare some things for him to protect himself." Moreover, Zhuangji has been in the inner sect for several years. He needs an opportunity to become a successor disciple. If he can complete the mission this time, I will make an exception and take him in as a successor disciple during the year-end assessment. Manager Li couldn't help but reveal a pleasantly surprised expression when he heard Elder Wan's words. He had long wanted Elder Wan to take Li Zhuangji in as a successor disciple, but Li Zhuangzi's aptitude was so average that he really didn't have the face to open his mouth. He thought about it again. Although the sea area near the Blood Sand Island was dangerous, if he was careful, it wouldn't be a problem not to provoke high-level sea beasts. Chapter 3994. The Drifter returned the puppet disc. Manager Li looked ashamed and said, "Elder Wan, it's my fault for being narrow-minded. Please don't lower yourself to my level." Elder Wan smiled and said, "You don't have to be so polite to your own family. You'd better go back and instruct Zhuangji to be careful and put your own safety first." Manager Li thanked him profusely again before leaving in a hurry. After Manager Li left, Wan Qingbao walked out of the inner room with a mocking look on his face. "Father, does that idiot really think that a good-for-nothing like Li Zhuangji is worthy of becoming a successor disciple? He's just going to die." However, if Li Zhuangji really dies outside, won't Manager Li hate us? If we don't send Li Zhuangji out with us, wouldn't it be suspicious if Yun Chuzhou died? But if Li Zhuangji goes with us, we can get rid of this suspicion. After all, everyone knows that we are Manager Li's men. If Manager Li doesn't know what's good for him, then we can just give up. The sword pool has been in trouble one after another. I have long wanted to give up on Manager Li as a chess piece. Elder Wan's tone was indifferent. Wan Qingba's eyes flickered. Then he said, "Father is wise. This time, Yun Chuzhou will definitely die. Even if they can escape from the Blood Sand Island in one piece, they will still be robbed and killed by our people on the way back. There is no chance of survival at all." Elder Wan sneered. "I do hope that she will die on the Blood Sand Island. This will save us a lot of trouble." On the other side, Yun Chuzhou comforted Zhao Hui, and then returned to the courtyard. When the drifters saw that Yun Chuzhou was still shamelessly moving forward, Yun Chuzhou sneered, "I will go on a mission tomorrow. Let's see how you will pester me." As soon as Yun Chuzhou said that, the drifters were not in the mood to jump around anymore. They listlessly made way for her. Yun Chuzhou curled her lips and ignored them. She entered the house to prepare the things she needed. This fellow knew that she was unlucky. Having learned from the past, he purposely placed the small Wu Yun, the large kitchen knife, and some medicinal pills behind his back in his bag. This way, even if she encountered a situation where she could not use her spiritual power, she would not have to worry anymore. The next morning, Yun Chuzhou woke up early. When she pushed open the door, she was stunned. She saw 3 puppet discs on the stone table. They were the 3 puppet discs that had been kidnapped by the drifters. Yun Chuzhou turned her head and looked around. She did not find any murderous aura. She thought to herself, could it be that the murderous aura had finally found its conscience? Was that why she returned the puppet discs? Yun Chuzhou picked up the puppet disc and looked at it. She used her spiritual sense to communicate with it, but she didn't find anything unusual. She remembered that although there weren't any puppet driving shells made of 1,000-year-old black iron in her storage ring, there were a few puppets made of ordinary refined iron. So she put the 3 puppet discs in and said with a smile, "In the future, you will be puppet number 6, puppet number 7, and puppet number 8. When you find a good driving shell, I will help you change it. You can use these 3 driving shells for the time being." The 3 puppets kneeled on one knee and said, "Yes, master." Yun Chuzhou put the 3 puppets into her storage ring, satisfied. However, she didn't notice the red light flashing in the eyes of the 3 puppets. Yun Chuzhou was a little late when she arrived at the meeting place. Naturally, she was mocked by Chen Bufan and the others. Chapter 3995. The lost Si. Yun Chuzhou was in a good mood because of the loss of the puppet disc, so she pretended not to hear it. Chen Bufan and the others saw that Yun Chuzhou did not have any reaction, and they suddenly felt a little embarrassed. Li Zhuangji snorted. "Okay, it's getting late. Let's go." Chen Bufan and the others followed Li Zhuangzi's lead and immediately flattered him. They escorted Li Zhuangji out of the sect, while Yun Chuzhou and Zhao Hui were left behind. Zhao Hui sighed in his heart. They hadn't even left the sect yet, and they were already in this state. If they were outside, they would probably make a move openly. This mission was really doomed. When everyone left the sect, Li Zhuangji summoned the flying spirit tool given to them by the sect. It had the Nameless Sword sect's logo on it. This was also to prevent other small sects or rogue cultivators from having designs on them. The journey was rather smooth. Although Chen Bufan and the others occasionally mocked them, they did not do anything to Yun Chuzhou and Zhao Hui. The 5 of them had already reached a consensus. The sea area near the Blood Sand Island was very dangerous. It was always good to have more people, so they planned to attack on the way back. The main thing was that they were confident that even if Yun Chuzhou had some tricks up her sleeve, they would definitely be able to kill Yun Chuzhou and Zhao Hui in a 5 versus 2 situation. 2 days later, the 7 of them arrived at the Sea of Oblivion, where the Blood Sand Island was located. Since flying was prohibited around the Sea of Oblivion, the 7 of them had no choice but to dismount their flying spirit tools and walk to the Sea of Oblivion. Chen Bufan looked at the bag on Yun Chuzhou's back and sneered, "Junior sister Yun, are you out of your mind? Why do you have a bag on your back when you have a storage ring? Don't you have nothing better to do?" Yun Chuzhou glanced at him and said faintly, "I'm willing, It's none of your business. Chun Bufan. He gritted his teeth. Stupid girl, I'll let you gloat for a few days. When you return from Bloodsand Island, I'll definitely kill you. The Sea of Oblivion was surrounded by a large area of barren land and sandy beaches. There were many low-level sea beasts on it. Although these sea beasts were not of high grade, it was said that they tasted very delicious. Therefore, the fishermen in the vicinity basically relied on hunting these sea beasts for a living. When the fishermen saw the nameless sword sex clothing on Yun Chuzhou and the other three, they all revealed expressions of admiration and respect. This made Li Zhuangji and the others feel a little smug. In the eyes of the fishermen, sect disciples like them were simply unreachable existences. They were basically on par with immortals. It was unknown whether it was to show off or out of kindness, but Li Zhuangji and the others helped a few old fishermen hunt some low-level sea beasts, which made the few old men continuously thank them. Yun Chuzhou narrowed her eyes. It seemed that these few goods were not bad to the bone. There was still a trace of kindness in them. If they did not seek their own death, she could let them go. However, Yun Chuzhi's attention quickly shifted to the low-level sea beasts. The fisherman said that the sea beasts tasted delicious, so she bought a large amount of them with spirit stones and prepared to eat them on the ship. In order to maintain the dignity of the immortals, Chan Bufan and the others did not mock Yun Chuzhou. Instead, they thought to themselves, this good for nothing. They were out on a mission, not out to eat. It was so embarrassing. The old fishermen who were helped by Li Zhuangji and the others gathered their courage and asked, Immortals, are you going out to sea? Chapter 3996. Delicious seafood. Li Zhuangji nodded when he heard the old fisherman's question. He said with a hint of arrogance in his tone, that's right. We're going to the sea area near the Bloodsand Island to search for the 1,000 gold golden dragon incense. The moment Li Zhuangzi's words left his mouth, both the old fisherman and the other fisherman cried out in surprise. One after another, they tried to dissuade him. Immortals, we can't go to the Bloodsand Island. A few days ago, a few groups of people went to the Bloodsand Island, but they still haven't returned. Most likely they've already lost their lives. Yes, there are many high-level sea beasts gathered near the Bloodsand Island. Even on the Bloodsand Island, there are many sea beasts living there. That place is called the Dead Sea area by us. Also, although there were some people who escaped from death occasionally, they only picked up the worst quality brown ambergris. Immortals, it's better not to go. Li Zhuangji and the others were very proud and arrogant. How could they listen to them? The fishermen shook their heads one after another, but they couldn't say anything more. They watched Yun Chuzhou and the others call out the ship and sail to the sea. As soon as they boarded the ship, Yun Chuzhou began to instruct Zhao Hui to stew the sea goods. Very soon a fragrance filled the air. Li Zhuangji and the others were still mocking at the sight at first, but as the fragrance became stronger and stronger, they couldn't hold it in anymore. They rarely ate anything from the sea in the sect, and these sea goods were unexpectedly delicious. Therefore they didn't care about their face anymore and joined in to eat as well. Zhao Hui was afraid that Yun Chuzhou would know. After all, they were all in the same boat now. It was better to be amiable. However, what surprised him was that Yun Chuzhou did not say anything. Instead, she buried her head in her food as if she did not see Li Zhuangji and the others at all. Zhao Hui finally heaved a sigh of relief. He thought to himself, junior sister Yun still knows the big picture. After everyone had a good meal, Li Zhuangji and the others went to the deck to chat and laugh. They had no intention of staying behind to help Zhao Hui clean up the dishes. Zhao Hui shook his head with a bitter smile and started to clean up. However, he saw Yun Chuzhou taking out a small notebook and writing on it. Zhao Hui curiously went over to take a look and saw the words written on it. Li Zhuangji, 10 double-tailed jumping fish, 3 cracked clams, 2 giant pincer prawns. Chan Bufan, 8 double-tailed jumping fish, 6 cracked clams, 3 giant pincer prawns. Zhao Hui was dumbfounded. Junior sister Yun, why are you remembering this? Yun Chuzhou looked at him as if she was looking at an idiot. Of course I'm saving it as evidence to ask them for money in the future. I bought all these goods with my money. I have to sell them for at least 100 times the price. Zhao Hui trembled. Then do I have to spend money to buy it? You don't have to. You can just take it as paying with labor. Yun Chuzhou said lightly. Zhao Hui. This junior sister Yun was really a money grubber. However, Li Zhuangji and the others had bad intentions. Would she still have the chance to ask them for money? This time. On the deck, Chan Bufan was shaking his head and said, Senior brother Li, the Sea of No here is not as exaggerated as those people said. We have been sailing here for half a day. Although the wind and waves are indeed very strong, we have not encountered a single sea beast. I am afraid that they would be scared away when they see our big ship. The other 3 people also chimed in. Yes, those fishermen also said that there was no return. I think the previous groups of people who went there must have very low spiritual power, which is why they lost their lives. TSK, I heard that ambergris is quite expensive. If we are lucky, besides the mission given to the sect, we can also make a lot of money. This mission is so worth it. Chapter 3997. Go and die by yourselves. When Li Zhuangji heard Chan Bufan and the other swords, his face also revealed a look of joy. As long as he could complete the mission this time, he would become a successor disciple by the end of the year assessment. That would be a meteoric rise. The sky quickly darkened. Although Li Zhuangji and the others were arrogant, they still had basic common sense. Once the sky completely darkened and the sea was abnormally dangerous, they had to send someone to guard it. They looked at each other and naturally handed over the responsibility of the vigilance to Yun Chuzhou and Zhao Hui. To their surprise, Yun Chuzhou did not say anything. Instead, she obediently agreed. Li Zhuangji thought to himself, at least the stinky girl knows what's good for her. If she continues to be so tactful, it's not impossible to not kill her. When the time comes, it'll just teach her a lesson. Zhao Hui was also very puzzled by Yun Chuzhi's easygoing attitude. After Zhao Hui and the others had fallen asleep, Zhao Hui asked in puzzlement, Junior sister Yun, why are you so easygoing? Yun Chuzhou chuckled and said, I'm usually easygoing too. Besides, there's still a long way to go. It's not a big deal to stay up all night. Zhao Hui really could not understand Yun Chuzhi's thoughts, so he could only dutifully patrol the bow and stern of the ship. He was not as optimistic as Li Zhuangji and the others. He always felt that the sea of nothingness here was very dangerous. A night quickly passed, but nothing happened. Not even a single sea beast came to harass them. Yun Chuzhou frowned. She looked for Li Zhuangji and said, Let's return. Li Zhuangji was first stunned. Then he said angrily, Yun Chuzhou, are you crazy? We haven't found the ambergris, why are we returning? Yun Chuzhou sneered. Didn't you notice that something is wrong? Li Zhuangzi's face became even uglier. Something is wrong? What's wrong? Other than the bigger waves, we haven't met any sea beasts, and you still say that something is wrong? Yun Chuzhi's voice also became colder. It's because we haven't met any sea beasts that something is wrong. We have been sailing for a day and a night. According to common sense, even if we don't encounter high-level sea beasts to provoke us, there should be some sea beasts that like to follow the ship, right? But did you see it? You've never been to the Sea of Lost. How do you know if there are any sea beasts that like to follow ships? Perhaps there aren't any sea beasts like what you said. Don't say anymore. I'm the team leader. Everything is up to me. Li Zhuangji said coldly. Yun Chuzhou turned to look at Chan Bufan and the others. What do you think? Chan Bufan and the others looked at each other. Although they were a little scared by Yun Chuzhi's words, they felt that she was making a mountain out of a molehill. Perhaps it was just a coincidence. Therefore they kept mocking her. They were just echoing Li Zhuangzi's words. Yun Chuzhou sneered and said, All right, since you guys want to die, then go. Senior brother Zhao, let's go. Zhao Hui was dumbfounded. Although he felt that what Yun Chuzhou said made sense, they did not have a ship, so how could they leave? Just as Zhao Hui was thinking, he saw Yun Chuzhou call out a large ship. Although it was not as strong as Li Zhuangzi's ship, it was still strong enough to sail on the sea. Yun Chuzhou jumped onto the ship, and Zhao Hui jumped onto Yun Chuzhi's ship without hesitation. He now had 120% trust in Yun Chuzhou, so he naturally followed her lead. Chapter 3998 contained a lot of ambergris. Li Zhuangji was so angry that he almost died. He never expected Yun Chujo to bring a boat out. He shouted sternly, "Yun Chujo, you have to think carefully. What you are doing now is running away at the last minute. You will definitely be punished when you return to the sect." Yun Chujo laughed lightly. "It is better to be punished than to die. I hope you can still live to return to the sect." As Yun Chujo spoke, she directly steered the ship to return, completely ignoring Li Zhuangzi's furious roar from behind. Chen Bufan braced himself and said, "Senior brother Li, 2 out of the 7 of us are missing. This mission is too difficult. Why don't we return as well? Anyway, if the sect asks, we can just push the blame onto Yun Chujo." Li Zhuangzi gritted his teeth. If it weren't for Elder Wan's promise, he would have been happy to return. But if he couldn't get the ambergris, wouldn't his position as a successor disciple be gone? And so, he said, "Don't worry about them. We'll arrive at the Blood Sand Island in half a day. We'll see how things go first. You must know that if we get the ambergris, not only will we be able to complete the sect's mission, we'll also make a lot of money." On one hand, Chen Bufan and the others did not want to offend Li Zhuangzi. On the other hand, they were driven by greed. Therefore, they nodded and continued to sail in the direction of Blood Sand Island. As they got closer and closer to Blood Sand Island, the wind and waves became stronger and stronger. Fortunately, their ship was strong enough so it was not a big deal. They could see the blood-red beach of Blood Sand Island from afar. "Oh my God! Senior brother Li, look. Those seem to be ambergris," Chen Bufan said excitedly as he pointed at some brown objects on the red beach. Li Zhuangzi took a closer look and immediately revealed an ecstatic expression on his face. "That's right, I've seen ambergris before. Those are indeed ambergris. Although the quality is average, there are so many of them. We're rich." The other 3 were also dancing with excitement. "Haha, those 2 idiots Yun Chujo and Zhao Hui actually gave up such a chance to strike it rich." "What idiots?" "That's right. Not only did they miss the chance to strike it rich, they were even punished by the sect rules after returning to the sect. They really deserved it." The 5 of them were very excited. So when the big ship reached the shallow water area, they couldn't wait to rush to the beach. They didn't even put the big ship into their storage rings. Li Zhuangzi rushed to the front of the largest ambergris, picked it up and said excitedly, "Ha ha ha! It's really ambergris. We're rich." Chen Bufan and the others were so excited that they couldn't even finish their words. They kept putting the ambergris into their storage rings, wishing they could put the entire Bloody Sand Island into their storage rings. However, while they were excited, they didn't notice that the ship that was originally docked in the shallow waters had sunk into the sea. Several scarlet eyes appeared on the surface of the sea, quickly approaching the beach. Li Zhuangzi and the others finally noticed the abnormality, but when they looked up, they were scared out of their wits. They saw that the entire surface of the sea was covered by huge sea beasts. Pairs of scarlet eyes were greedily looking at them, and the ship that was docked in the shallow waters had long disappeared. Chen Bufan said with a trembling voice, "Yes, it's a level 64 bloodthirsty iron skin shark. What should we do?" Li Zhuangzi's face was also pale, but he still pretended to be calm and said, What are you afraid of? They are sea beasts, they can't climb onto the island." Another disciple said with a sobbing tone, "Although they can't do anything to us for the time being, our ship has been destroyed by them. We can't go back. If we knew this would happen, we would have listened to Yun Chujo." Chapter 3999. Red Roots. When Li Zhuangzi heard the disciples' words, although his heart was filled with regret, he said, "What's the point of saying all this? Do you still have any ships in your storage rings?" The remaining 4 people shook their heads. In the northern continent, a good ship was more expensive than a flying spirit tool, and they rarely came to the sea. Moreover, when they were on a mission, the sect would assign ships for them to use. Therefore, who would prepare another ship like that pervert Yun Chujo? They wished they could turn back time now. If they had the chance to do it all over again, they would run away with Yun Chujo no matter what. In their panic, even the ambergris on the beach lost its attraction. If they lost their lives, what was the use of these things? The bloodthirsty iron-skinned shark stared at them coldly in the sea not far away. They did not make any movements. When everyone was slightly relieved, they realized that as time passed, the tide began to rise. Chun Bufan said in panic, "Senior brother Li, the tide is rising. What should we do? Why don't we go to the island and take a look?" Li Zhuangji gritted his teeth. The fisherman said that there were many terrifying sea beasts on the Blood Sand Island, but now they could only take a gamble. Therefore, he led Chun Bufan and the others away from the beach that had been continuously eroded by the seawater and into the low bushes. After walking for a while, nothing unusual happened. Li Zhuangzi's face regained some color. It seemed that the rumors could not be believed. There were no powerful demonic beasts on the Blood Sand Island. Chun Bufan said with a trembling voice, "Senior brother Li, since it is still safe here, we should not continue to walk in." The other three nodded. Although there was nothing unusual at the moment, they recalled what Yun Chuzhou had said before. The Blood Sand Island was strangely quiet. It was not a short distance for them to go, but they did not encounter a single sea beast or even a single spirit ant. It was too unbelievable. Li Zhuangji also lost his previous arrogance. Hearing that, he nodded. The five of them gathered some dry firewood, but when they were about to light the bonfire, they realized that they could not open their storage rings. This was not the worst part. They found that the spiritual power in their bodies had been completely confined. What was going on? After being stunned for a moment, the five of them looked at each other and ran wildly toward the beach. Even if they were facing those bloodthirsty iron-skin sharks, it was still much better than this kind of situation where they were at the mercy of others. However, blood-red roots suddenly jumped out from the ground, firmly entangling the five of them and dragging them toward the depths of the Blood Sand Island. The five of them struggled desperately, but all their struggles were futile. Fortunately, the roots did not strangle their necks, otherwise, the five of them would have died long ago. Despair surged in the five of them. They could not survive. One of the disciples cursed, "Li Zhuangji, it's all your fault. Back then, Yun Chuzhou said that she wanted to return, but you did not agree. Now we are all dead because of you." He was afraid of Li Zhuangji before, but now that he was about to die, what was there to be afraid of? Li Zhuangji was also very regretful in his heart, but what was the use of saying all this now? Could it be that he could do it all over again? After a quarter of an hour, the five of them were dragged to the center of the Blood Sand Island by the roots. When the five of them saw the situation around them, their faces showed fear and despair. Chapter 4000. The kindest woman in front of Li Zhuangji and the others was a thick and strong tree. The blood-red trunk seemed to have been watered with fresh blood. What frightened them the most was that there were many white bones scattered under the tree. Some were human, some were sea beasts, and no one knew how many there were. The five of them knew that they could not escape death today, but they did not expect that they would actually be killed by such a demonic tree in the end. What made them even more terrified was that the demonic tree actually let out a strange laugh. "Another 5 people are here to die. TSK, their spiritual power is not low. It's enough for this lord to replenish it." Li Zhuangji roared with a stern expression. "I advise you to let us go. Otherwise, once the sect finds out that we were killed, you won't be able to escape either." Blood Tree let out a hoarse and unpleasant strange laugh. "Run? How could this lord be afraid of your so-called sect? Moreover, even if they came looking for me, they wouldn't find me. They would find out that this was just an ordinary island. Also, as long as I absorb some spiritual power, this lord will be able to escape the shackles of this island. When that time comes, who will be able to stop this lord?" Although Li Zhuangji and the others were somewhat confused after listening to Blood Tree's words, one thing was certain. They definitely had no hope of surviving today. The 5 of them struggled with all their might, but their bodies were tightly bound and they didn't have any spiritual power. There was no way for them to break free. The roots dragged the 5 of them to the Blood Tree's trunk. A crack appeared on the Blood Tree's trunk, emitting a thick smell of blood. Li Zhuangji and the others felt that the shadow of death had already enveloped them. At this moment, a chuckle came from not far away. I say, you shameless demon tree, why are you so desperate? Aren't you afraid that after eating these 5 trash, you will also become a trash?" Li Zhuangji and the others were shocked to see 2 people standing not far away. They were Yun Chuzhou and Zhao Hui. Li Zhuangji and the others were a little confused. Didn't Yun Chuzhou and Zhao Hui already return? How did they appear here? Could it be that they had hallucinations before they died? Li Zhuangji bit his tongue and grimaced in pain. It seemed that this was true. At this moment he had long forgotten about his past grudges. To him, Yun Chuzhou was the savior who had descended from the sky. The only person who could give them a chance to live. Junior sister Yun, why are you back? Save me! Save me! Li Zhuangji shouted at the top of his voice. Chen Bufan and the others were not any better. They were screaming at the top of their lungs. If they did not know, they would have thought that they had a good relationship with Yun Chuzhou. Yun Chuzhou sighed faintly. Senior brothers, I am the most soft-hearted person. I originally wanted to take senior brother Zhao and leave, but I couldn't just watch you guys die. So I risked my life and came here with full of enthusiasm. Aren't you all very touched? Li Zhuangji and the others were so touched that they cried bitterly. Although they felt that the possibility of Yun Chuzhou successfully saving them was very small, they had to admit that they truly felt the warmth of humanity at this moment. They even secretly swore in their hearts that even if they couldn't live, they would do everything in their next life to repay junior sister Yun's kindness. In the past, they were simply blind. They actually felt that junior sister Yun was very annoying. Junior sister Yun was clearly the kindest and most soft-hearted woman in this world. Chapter 4001. The foil bucket. Zhao Hui, who was beside Yun Chuzhou, looked at Li Zhuangji and the others' crying expressions. When he saw Yun Chuzhou's sorrowful look, his heart felt like it had been bawled out. Junior sister Yun, is it really good for you to lie like this? We were clearly swept onto this island by a sudden storm. How is this what you mean by sacrificing yourself for others? Just as Zhao Hui was thinking, the blood tree interrupted his thoughts. The blood tree laughed strangely. What a heaven-sent opportunity! This lord originally thought that he would have to wait for some time before he could completely break free from this damn restriction. He did not expect that this lord would actually be given a great tonic, the heavenly thunder spirit root. Little girl, you really came at the right time. Yun Chuzhou covered her stomach and laughed. It was so funny that Li Zhuangji and the others were dumbfounded. It was over. No wonder this little girl came to save them. She was crazy. Blood Tree was a little confused by the laughter. He said coldly, "What are you laughing at?" Yun Chuzhou used her sleeve to wipe away the tears from her laughter. Of course I'm laughing at you. I've never seen someone so eager to die. Did I really come at the right time? Yes, I'm here to take your life. I advise you to just kill yourself. Look at your wretched appearance. You're neither human nor tree. You're simply ugly to death. Also, your voice is horrible to hear. What's the point of living? You still call yourself this Lord Ba shameless. The branches of the blood tree began to shake, and the roots immediately lashed towards Yun Chuzhou and Zhao Hui, wanting to trap them as well. Yun Chuzhou curled her lips. Senior brother Zhao, take out our treasure and show this ugly freak. Li Zhuangji and the others were surprised. Treasure? What treasure? Spiritual energy couldn't be used here, so where did Zhao Hui take out the treasure? Zhao Hui turned around and pulled out a cylindrical object from the grass. Seeing this, Li Zhuangji and the others were shocked. It was actually a foil bucket used to hold earth fire. Wasn't spiritual power not allowed here? How did junior sister Yun take out the foil bucket? Moreover, didn't she have to return the foil bucket to the bounty hall every time she completed a mission? Blood Tree obviously didn't recognize the foil bucket, and continued to command its roots to sweep towards Yun Chuzhou and Zhao Hui. However, it saw Yun Chuzhou reveal a sinister smile and then use her hand to pull out the plug on the foil bucket. Instantly, wisps of extremely hot flames jumped out from the foil bucket. When Li Zhuangji and the others saw this, their faces revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. This was earth fire. Moreover, judging from the color of this flame, it should be the King Fire Essence Beast's earth fire. The 5 elements were mutually reinforcing and restraining each other. Wood was afraid of fire. This damn demonic tree was dead for sure. Their hearts surged with great joy. This kind of hope for survival made their entire bodies once again exude vitality. The earth fire sprayed onto the roots, and the blood tree immediately let out a miserable cry. This is earth fire. Stinky girl, where did you get it? Yun Chujo lifted the foil bucket and burned the roots with Zhao Hui as she said proudly, "Ugly freak. You really know your stuff. It's not a waste for my senior brother Zhao to carry this foil bucket through mountains and rivers. Come, let's make a deal. If you let those 5 trash go, I'll let you go. Well, cross the bridge and return to the road." Bloodtree said coldly, "Stupid girl, I'll count to 3. If you don't put down the thing in your hand right now, I'll kill these 5 trash. 1, 2. Yun Chujo bared her little white teeth. "No need to count. Just kill them. Anyway, it doesn't matter to me whether they die or not." Li Zhuangji and the others. "Junior sister Yun, what happened to loving and loving a family? What happened to not abandoning or giving up? What happened to the kindest and softest woman? Is it really okay for you to do this?" Chapter 4002, Terms of Exchange. Bloodtree was also a little confused by Yun Chujia's words. Wasn't this wretched girl still righteous and self-sacrificing before? Why did she die now? Wasn't this change too fast? Bloodtree thought that Yun Chujo was holding on. It laughed strangely and said, "Wretched girl, don't think that you can deceive me with your words. I don't believe that you don't care about these people's lives. I'll give you one more chance. I'll count to 3. Why are you so indecisive? I'll help you count. 1, 2, 3. Okay, you can kill them all." Yun Chujo continued to burn the roots of the blood tree with the earth fire as she said with a smile, "Blood tree." It was really in a dilemma. These 5 trash were now its life-saving talismans. If it really ate them, this stupid girl would have no more scruples. What should it do? Bloodtree thought of something and sneered, "All right, I agree with what you said before. I'll let these 5 people go. You guys leave immediately and pretend that nothing happened." Yun Chujo nodded. "That's right. You let them go. I promise to take them away immediately. If I don't keep my word, I'll turn into an ugly monster like you." Bloodtree was so angry that he was twitching. He sneered and said, "I don't believe you. Give me the bucket with the earth fire and I'll let them go." Yun Chujo blinked her eyes. "If you don't believe me, I don't believe you. How about this? I'll put the stopper on. As long as the 5 trash come to my side, I'll give you this foil bucket. What do you think?" Bloodtree sneered in its heart. It seemed that this stupid girl was just a little clever. As long as the foil bucket containing earth fire was controlled by it, none of these people would be able to escape. So it said, "Okay." Immediately, Yun Chujo put the stopper back on the outlet of the foil bucket, and Bloodtree also let go of Li Zhuangji and the others. Li Zhuangji and the others staggered to Yun Chujia's side. Before they could say anything, they saw that the Bloodtree's roots had already taken the foil bucket away. Bloodtree laughed out loud. "Stupid girl. You've been tricked. Do you really think that this lord has been blackmailed by you? This lord has merely played along. Without the earth fire, let's see what you can do this time." As Bloodtree spoke, he directed the roots to sweep towards Yun Chujo and the others. Li Zhuangji and the others were instantly dumbfounded. They had thought that they had been saved, but who would have thought that they had been tricked? It's over, it's over. Yun Chujo was too naive. Why did she really give the foil bucket to Bloodtree? At this moment, Yun Chujo took out a large kitchen knife from the bag on her back. With a series of cracking sounds, she chopped the tree roots into pieces. Bloodtree said incredulously, "Impossible, impossible. These roots of mine are extremely strong. Now that you don't have any spiritual power, how can you cut off my roots?" Yun Chujo pouted at Zhao Hui and said with a smile, "Ugly monster. There are many things that you can't imagine." Just when Bloodtree was puzzled, he saw Zhao Hui pull out a foil bucket from the bushes. Yun Chujo said with a smile, "Ugly monster, no wonder people call you stupid. You are really an idiot. Do you think I only have that one foil bucket? Idiot." Chapter 4003, An Empty Bucket. Not to mention the blood tree, even Li Zhuangji and the others did not expect Yun Chujo to bring 2 foil buckets. Only Zhao Hui had a bitter smile on his face. Although these 2 foil buckets were not particularly heavy, without spiritual power, it also exhausted him. The blood tree immediately pulled its roots back a little, but it quickly sneered, "Stinky girl, do you think you are the only one who has earth fire? Don't forget, I also have a foil bucket in my hand. Although burning you to death will affect the absorption effect, it's still better than letting you escape. Li Zhuangji and the others immediately became nervous. Blood Tree was originally very difficult to deal with. If Blood Tree used earth fire to deal with them again, they would have no way to survive. Unexpectedly, when she heard Blood Tree's words, Yun Chujiu giggled. Ugly freak. Why are you so stupid? Do you think that if there was earth fire in the foil barrel I would hand it over to you? The earth fire inside has already been used up by me. What you got is just an empty foil barrel. Blood Tree used his roots to pull out the cork on the foil barrel in disbelief. Indeed, other than a few faint flames, there were no other flames jumping out from inside. Clearly the inside was empty. Blood Tree was almost angered to death. After a long time, this wretched girl actually used an empty foil bucket to exchange for 5 hostages. It was simply a great humiliation. While Blood Tree was in a daze, Yun Chujiu and the others turned around and ran. What a joke. If they didn't run, were they waiting to die? The earth fire in the foil bucket was limited. It was likely that there was no way to burn Blood Tree to death. The further the distance, the weaker the power of the Blood Tree's roots should be. The Blood Tree came back to its senses and instructed the roots to follow closely behind. Moreover, it also knew that Yun Chujiu had a large kitchen knife, and that Zhao Hui had a foil bucket, so it targeted Li Zhuangji and the others. It finally figured it out. It was also confused just now. No matter what, it should first absorb the spiritual power of the 5 people so that the ducks in its mouth would not fly away. Li Zhuangji and the others were not as fast as those roots. Soon, they were entangled again and dragged toward the direction of the Blood Tree by those roots. At this time they could only pin their hopes on Yun Chujiu and Zhao Hui, screaming for help. Yun Chujiu did not take Xiao, but used the kitchen knife to help them cut off the entangled roots. She did not let Zhao Hui use the earth fire. She wanted to save it for a critical moment. She wanted to burn the Blood Sand Island, but the island was shrouded in mist, and most of the plants that grew there had a lot of moisture. She tried to ignite the plants several times, but she could not burn them on a large scale. She could only give up this idea. Chen Bufan panted and said, Junior Sister Yun, the tide is high now. Even if we can run down there, I'm afraid we won't be able to defeat those bloodthirsty iron-skin sharks. Yun Chujiu laughed lightly. There are no bloodthirsty iron-skin sharks on the north side of the Blood Sand Island. Zhao Hui and I came to the island from there. We'll escape from there. When Chen Bufan and the others heard that, they thought that it made sense. If there were bloodthirsty iron-skin sharks on the other side, Yun Chujiu and Zhao Hui would not be able to come to the Blood Sand Island. Therefore, hope rekindled in their hearts and they ran as fast as they could towards the back of the Blood Sand Island. However, when they finally reached the back of the Blood Sand Island, they tragically discovered that the surface of the sea was shimmering with scarlet light. It was terrifying under the moonlight. Chapter 4004. How do we break out of this predicament? Just as everyone was in a daze, Blood Tree's sinister laughter could be heard coming from the entire Blood Sand Island. A bunch of idiots. My Blood Sand Island only allows entry and no exit. When you guys came, I naturally wanted to let you guys in. If you want to escape, no way. Following Blood Tree's voice, many roots emerged from the ground. What was worse was that everyone found that their spiritual power had not recovered. It seemed that they could only recover their spiritual power by walking to the original spot on the beach. However, the place had been submerged by the sea, and there were many bloodthirsty iron-skin sharks gathered there. They would probably be bitten to death by those bloodthirsty iron-skin sharks before they recovered their spiritual power. It would be suicide to go there. Li Zhuangzi's eyes were red. It was possible that a person who was about to die would speak kindly. He said to Yun Chujiu, Junior Sister Yun, it was all my fault in the past. I am not a human and I have let you down. If there is a next life, I will definitely make up for my mistake. Chen Bufan also said with shame, Junior Sister Yun, I have let you down. If we can still get out alive, I will do everything I can to repay your kindness. Unfortunately, we will not live. Although the other 3 disciples did not say anything, their faces were also full of shame. In the face of death, the previous grudges were so laughable. They were simply stupid. Yun Chujo looked at them. It's good that you know. After all, there are not many people like me who repay grudges with kindness. Li Zhuangji and the other. Yun Chujo did not bother with these 5 idiots. If she had a choice, she would not have saved them. The main reason was that she and Zhao Hui had been dragged here by the wind and waves. When they saw the bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks around them, they had no choice but to stay on the island. Moreover, they had more people and more helpers. Moreover, Li Zhuangzi's father was a direct descendant of Elder Wan. If they could win over Manager Li, they could be considered as a help. However, how could they solve the current predicament? There was a small Wu Yun in the bag on her back, but she had tried it before. Whether it was on the sea or on the island, she could not use it. She had to say that a large kitchen knife was more reliable. Yun Chujo narrowed her eyes. Why could spiritual power be used in the sea? Even the original beach could use spiritual power? She had a vague idea in her mind. She consciously brought the group closer to the sea, only to see that the tree roots would not extend forward when they reached a place with seawater. Although the bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks could not reach the shallow water area due to their huge size, they continued to attack Yun Chujo and the others with water arrows. Fortunately, Yun Chujo and the others were quite agile due to the distance. They could still deal with it in a short period of time. Yun Chuji's eyes lit up. Those roots don't seem to like the seawater. Pour it on them, Yun Chujo said as she used her kitchen knife to pour seawater on the roots. Sure enough, the roots that were splashed by the seawater began to shrink. Li Zhuangji and the others were overjoyed when they saw the situation. They poured seawater on the roots with all their might, temporarily forcing the roots back. Finally, they heaved a sigh of relief. Chen Bufan asked admiringly, "Junior sister Yun, how did you know that the roots are afraid of seawater?" Yun Chujo did not beat around the bush and explained, "I was just guessing. Firstly, those roots stopped extending when they reached a place with seawater. Secondly, I guess that the original beach could use spirit energy. I'm afraid that the roots of the blood tree were afraid of the seawater when the tide rose, so the control area could not extend to the original beach." Chapter 4005 was something that had been overlooked. Chen Bufan and the others nodded their heads as they listened. Yun Chujo had a belly full of bad ideas. It had originally been a nightmare for them, but now it had become a life-saving medicine. They even suspected that their original self was possessed by a ghost. Otherwise, why would they hate such a kind and intelligent junior sister Yun? In order to save their strength, Yun Chujo arranged for 3 people to splash seawater on the roots that were trying to get close. The other 3 people used their clothes to pull the water arrows. After all, they were wearing the uniform of the nameless sword sect. It was relatively sturdy. The remaining one was surrounded in the middle for a short rest. This way they could take turns to have a breather. When the tide was low at dawn, they could reach a place where they could use their spiritual power and then make further plans. Seeing this, the blood tree was so angry that it gritted its teeth. However, it felt that even after dawn, these people would not be able to break through the bloodthirsty iron-skinned shark's blockade. Sooner or later, they would fall into its hands. Finally, the sun rose. The tide began to recede, gradually revealing the originally blood-red beach. Li Zhuangji and the others were ecstatic. The first thing they needed to do to recover their spiritual power was to swallow pills to replenish their strength. It's a pity that we can't use talismans here. Otherwise, we could have asked the sect for help. Zhao Hui sighed. Chen Bufan laid on the beach and said, "Now we can only hope that the sect will send someone to check on us after the mission deadline has passed. I'm so tired. I'm going to sleep first. I still have to splash water at night." Yun Chujo kicked him and said, "What are you talking about? We can't just wait here. The blood tree might have other plans. Although the bloodthirsty iron-skin sharks can't come ashore, there might be other sea beasts that can come ashore. By then we won't be able to survive." Chen Bufan sat up immediately. He basically treated Yun Chuji's words as an imperial edict, so he didn't dare to disobey her. Zhao Hui said from the side, "Junior sister Yun, there are only 2 ways now. One is to destroy the blood tree, and the second is to break through the blockade of the bloodthirsty iron-skin sharks and leave this place. However, either one is too difficult. We can't do it at all. Li Zhuangji and the others also sighed. Yes, the blood tree was so abnormal. Moreover, the area it covered could not even use spiritual power. How could they defeat it? Not to mention those bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks. There were around 1 to 200 of them. They couldn't defeat them no matter what. Everyone discussed for a while but couldn't come up with a solution. On the contrary, they were even less confident. They all drooped their heads, thinking that they could only live one day at a time. Yun Chuzhou didn't say anything. She carefully combed through the things that had happened in the past few days, and she remembered something that she had neglected. That was why they hadn't encountered any other sea beasts since they entered the Lost Sea. Instead, there were so many bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks here. Moreover, there were many white bones around the blood tree. Besides human bones, many of them belonged to sea beasts. Since the blood tree didn't like seawater, how could it hunt sea beasts? Sea beasts didn't like ambergris like cultivators. They were instinctively alert to danger. Why would they foolishly come to the island? Yun Chuzhou thought about it and looked at the bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks in the distance. Previously, the blood tree had said that the blood sand island would allow people to enter but not leave, so the behavior of these bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks was to cooperate with the blood tree. Perhaps they were also helping the blood tree to hunt the sea beasts, but why did they do that? Chapter 4006. I am the smartest person. Yun Chuzhou suddenly stood up and walked towards the sea. Li Zhuangji and the others were shocked. They hurried over to stop her. Junior sister Yun, what are you doing? If you continue to walk forward, those bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks will eat you. Yun Chuzhou waved her hand. You're thinking too much. I just want to get closer. I'm not stupid, I won't send myself to my death. Hearing her words, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. However, they still followed behind her, afraid that something might go wrong. Forget about being grateful. The main thing was that this little girl was their backbone. If she died, they wouldn't be able to live. After Yun Chuzhou got a little closer to the bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks, she waved her claws. Hey little guys, let's talk. Li Zhuangji and the others stumbled and almost fell into the sea. Junior sister Yun, is your eyesight bad? Can those behemoths be called little guys? What's there to talk about? They only want to eat us, okay? Those bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks were also confused. Is this human girl crazy? Not only is her eyesight bad, but her brain is also bad. Therefore, a few bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks swam towards Yun Chuzhou and began to shoot water arrows. Yun Chuzhou naturally would not be stupid and wait to be shot into a sieve. She raised her spiritual energy barrier and retreated out of the attack range of the bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks. She sneered and said, "A bunch of idiots. I tried to save you with good intentions, but it's fine if you don't appreciate it. Just keep being the executioner of that blood tree. The day the blood tree breaks free is the day you die." After saying that, Yun Chuzhou acted as if nothing had happened. She returned to the beach and began to instruct Zhao Hui to cook the seafood. No matter what, it was more important to fill her stomach first. Chen Bufan moved closer to Yun Chuzhou and asked in a low voice, "Junior sister Yun, what did you mean just now? Why can't I understand?" Yun Chuzhou glanced at him and said, "If you don't understand, then don't ask blindly. Help me cook." Chen Bufan. Fine, he didn't ask anything. However, he noticed that the surface of the sea had started to become restless. Some of the bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks had started to gather and were roaring. It seemed that they were having a heated argument. Yun Chuzhou looked at them coldly and didn't say anything else. She only said after the meal, "Little guys, if you don't want to be controlled by others, now is the best opportunity. Think about it. Those people who came before were killed by the blood tree. Only we are still alive and kicking. What does this mean? It means that we are blessed and blessed. We are sent by the heavens to save you. Also, I am the smartest person in this towering sky continent. Other than me, no one else can help you solve your current predicament. After this village, this shop will be useless. You must not miss it." Yun Chuzhou burped and continued, "Also, all the sea beasts in this area have been killed. I'm afraid that blood tree will soon have its eyes on you. You're going to die." Bloodtree finally couldn't take it anymore. It gritted its teeth and said to the bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks, "Don't listen to this bitch's nonsense. I won't mistreat you and I won't hurt you. Your words are better than your singing. It's a pity that there is an idiom called the more you cover up, the more you will be exposed. If you have nothing to hide, why are you so anxious to explain yourself?" Hei Shinjo secretly gave herself a thumbs up. This idiom was too appropriate. She was getting more and more talented. Chapter 4007. One-eyed shark. Bloodtree roared in exasperation. "Damn girl, if you continue to spout nonsense, this lord will not be polite to you." Yun Chujo shrugged her shoulders. "Look, I've exposed its true colors, so I'm going to kill it to silence it. Little guys, you can choose where you want to go." Bloodtree was obviously angry. Those roots no longer cared about the seawater and directly spread to the beach. Almost at the same time, Yun Chujo and the others found that their spiritual power was restrained. Yun Chujo and the others had no choice but to retreat into the seawater and use their spiritual power to attack the roots. However, the roots continued to spread. The purpose was obvious. They wanted to force Yun Chujo and the others into the attack range of the bloodthirsty iron skin sharks. Zhao Hui said anxiously, "Junior sister Yun, this can't go on. Think of something quickly." Chan Bufan and the others looked at Yun Chujo expectantly. They had already regarded Yun Chujo as their backbone. Yun Chujo blinked her eyes and turned to look at the bloodthirsty iron-skin sharks that had not made any moves. Now she could only take a gamble. Little guys, even if you don't think about yourself, you have to think about your descendants, right? Are you always under the control of others? I'm sure you've already made your decision based on your intelligence. Come over, let's force this ugly monster back to the island together. Let's think of a way to kill it completely and eliminate any future troubles. As expected, the bloodthirsty iron-skin sharks moved and swam towards Yun Chujo and the others. However, Zhao Hui and the others revealed terrified expressions. Who knew if these bloodthirsty iron-skin sharks were here to help or to eat people? Only Yun Chujo was calm and collected. She even had the leisure to wave her claws at the bloodthirsty iron-skin sharks. Bloodtree sneered in his heart. This darn girl was too naive. Those bloodthirsty iron-skin sharks had been firmly controlled by her. Did she think that a few words could make them betray her? How stupid. The bloodthirsty iron-skin sharks were getting closer and closer to Yun Chujo and the others. What made Zhao Hui and the others slightly relieved was that they did not attack. Perhaps they were really here to help? However, they stopped about 30 meters away from Yun Chujo and the others and stopped moving. Yun Chujo swam in their direction. Zhao Hui and the others were completely dumbfounded. Was she going to throw her life away? However, they still had to stop the spreading roots, so they could only let Yun Chujo swim over. Yun Chujo swam to the front of those bloodthirsty iron-skin sharks and said with a smile, "Although you can understand my words, I can't understand your words. Why don't you send a representative to establish a spiritual connection with me?" A bloodthirsty iron-skin shark swam to the front, and Yun Chujo found that this bloodthirsty iron-skin shark was actually blind in one eye. She didn't know whether it was caused by the hunting process. Yun Chujo immediately established a spiritual sense connection with this one-eyed shark. The one-eyed shark's somewhat cold voice sounded in Yun Chujo's spiritual sense. "Little girl, you really have guts. However, we haven't decided whether to cooperate with you or not. It depends on your ability." The corners of Yun Chujo's mouth curled up. "Tell me, what did that bloodtree threaten you with?" The one-eyed shark said in a low voice, "Many sea beasts used to live on this blood sand island. This is also the paradise of our bloodthirsty iron-skinned shark. Because of the fragrance of the golden dragon, some cultivators would come here occasionally. In order to make it easier for us to hunt, we set up our nest at the bottom of the sea under the blood sand island. However, something unexpected happened a few months ago." Chapter 4008. Cubs. The one-eyed shark seemed to have recalled some bad memories. It paused for a moment before continuing. "That blood tree suddenly appeared on Blood Sand Island. While we were out hunting, its roots extended into our nest. All the cubs were poisoned by its roots. Only by regularly taking the juice that it used its roots to deliver could their lives be extended. We had no way to detoxify the poison, so we could only listen to its arrangements and help it hunt. Little girl, unless you can detoxify our cubs, we will not cooperate with you. After all, those cubs are the hope for the survival of our race. When Yoon Chujo heard the one-eyed shark's words, she immediately said with a smile, "If it's another problem, I really don't have any solutions. But if it's poison, I'm not bragging. There's no poison in this world that I can't detoxify." Although the one-eyed shark felt that Yoon Chujo was too arrogant, they were still desperate. After all, the sea beasts nearby were either dead or hiding. In the end, the blood tree would probably kill them too. Since that's the case, follow me. As long as you can cure the young's poison, we're at your disposal, the one-eyed shark said. Yoon Chujo nodded and immediately called Zhao Hui and the others who were still fighting against the roots of the blood tree over. Zhao Hui and the others had no other choice but to swim over. Yoon Chujo said to them, "I'm going to do something. You guys wait for me here. Don't worry, with them protecting you, the blood tree won't do anything to you." Zhao Hui and the others were about to cry. Protect? Are you sure these bloodthirsty iron skin sharks are protecting them and not eating them? Besides, it was too uncomfortable to keep soaking in the sea. Yoon Chujo probably had a conscience. She summoned a ship from her storage ring and asked Zhao Hui and the others to wait on the ship. Then she said to the one-eyed shark, "With them as hostages, you should be relieved, right? Let's go. Bring me there to take a look." Zhao Hui and the others. Hostage? Junior sister Yoon, do you know that you won't have any friends like this? Although the blood tree didn't hear what the one-eyed shark and Yoon Chujo said, it had already guessed a little. It sneered in its heart. How could a puny human be able to solve its trick? Those bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks still wanted to struggle? It was really laughable. In the end, they could only obediently listen to its arrangements. Yoon Chujo followed the one-eyed shark to the bottom of the sea. If other factors were taken into account, the scenery below was still pretty good. The seawater was clear, and the bottom of the sea was a patch of snow-white sand with seaweed swaying gently with the waves. The nest of this group of bloodthirsty iron-skin sharks was set up in a reef at the bottom of the sea, and there were more than a dozen bloodthirsty iron-skin sharks patrolling around. The status of the one-eyed shark was obviously not low. When the patrolling bloodthirsty iron-skin sharks saw that it had brought a little human girl over, although they were puzzled, they did not stop it. Yoon Chujo soon saw dozens of bloodthirsty iron-skin sharks' babies. Those babies looked very lively, but each of them had a bright red mark on their back. The one-eyed shark said with grief and indignation, "Do you see that red bloodline? If you can't take the blood tree's juice on time, that bloodline will explode, and these babies will be in so much pain that they wish they were dead." Yoon Chujo scolded with righteous indignation. That ugly monster is really not a thing. He actually used such a despicable method. Don't worry. I will definitely be able to help these poor little things detoxify. Chapter 4009. Bloodline. The one-eyed shark was skeptical of Yoon Chujio's words. To be honest, if it hadn't been forced into a corner, it wouldn't have believed this little girl's nonsense. This little girl's age was too young. Even if she had learned medical skills from her mother's womb, it was impossible for her to be that high. How could she possibly cure the blood tree's poison? However, they had no other choice now. The previous group of cultivators had all been killed by the blood tree. These people could at least fight against the blood tree. Perhaps they really had some skills. Just as the one-eyed shark was thinking, Yoon Chujo said to it, "I have to see what kind of poison it is up close. Call a cub over and let me take a look." The one-eyed shark immediately called a more gentle cub over. The cub curiously sized up Yoon Chujo with its big round eyes. Yoon Chujio's heart suddenly softened when the cub looked at her with its innocent eyes. Generally speaking, all kinds of cubs were adorable because there were no impurities in their eyes. It was so pure that it made one's heart soften unconsciously. Yoon Chujo touched the cub's head with her hand, and then carefully looked at the bloodline on its back. Yoon Chujo was surprised to find that the bloodline was not still. It was still moving slowly. She reached out to touch the bloodline. The bloodline began to twist and struggle. as if it was going to break through the cub's skin. The baby immediately let out a scream and broke free from Yunchujia's touch. The one-eyed shark was disheartened. It seemed that this little girl had no way to detoxify the poison. Could it be that their baby was really hopeless? Just as it was thinking, Yunchujo touched her chin and said, "That is not poison. It looks like a goo." The one-eyed shark looked at Yunchujo in confusion. It had never heard of goo poison. After all, sea beasts were rarely poisoned, let alone goo poison. Yunchujo continued, "I'm not sure what it is. Could be goo or it could be something else. But one thing is for sure, the blood tree has no intention of letting these cubs go. If I am not wrong, these cubs are growing extremely slowly. They even show signs of regressing. This is because the nutrients and spiritual power in their bodies have been absorbed by the blood veins. When your value is exhausted, these cubs will be completely devoured by these blood veins." The one-eyed shark's huge body trembled a few times. This little girl was right. The bloodthirsty iron-skinned shark cubs were growing very quickly, but these cubs had not changed much over the past few months. Could it be that what the little girl said was true? Yunchujo knew that she was right the moment she saw the one-eyed shark's reaction. She narrowed her eyes and said, "If you want to completely remove these bloodlines from the cubs' bodies, you have to give me a chance to observe them properly. How about this? I'll knock out a cub so that it won't resist my inspection." Although the one-eyed shark was a little worried, it had no other choice but to let Yunchujo knock out the previously docile baby. Yunchujo then moved closer to the baby's back to observe the bloodline. With Yunchujia's touch, the bloodline began to swim around the baby's back. Fortunately, the baby was already unconscious, or else the pain would be unbearable. The one-eyed shark at the side looked at the bloodline that kept swimming around. Its heart was filled with hatred for the blood tree. If it was not for the little girl, they might have been kept in the dark. The blood tree had never intended to let these cubs go. Chapter 40:10. Go Weiba. Yunchujo frowned as she looked at the bloodline. It did not seem to be a goo. She looked closer and exclaimed, "This is not a goo. It is the root of the blood tree." The one-eyed shark was stunned. The root of the blood tree? If it is the root of the blood tree, wouldn't it lose its life if it was broken? Why are they still moving? Yunchujo shook her head. "I don't quite understand either. But if you look closely, the patterns of the bloodlines are exactly the same as the roots of the blood tree." The one-eyed shark looked closely. It was obvious that the roots were very similar to the roots of the blood tree. Could it really be the roots of the blood tree? Perhaps it's a secret method of the blood tree. Moreover, every time it comes to feed the pups juice, it's not to detoxify them, but to absorb the spiritual energy and nutrients that the bloodlines absorb from the pups. These pups of yours are just a moving reserve of food for it. Yunchujia's tone was a little cold. She inexplicably thought of Guai Chao. Damn it, she was practically the same as these pups, the damn dog tail. Guai Chao and her dantian was dumbfounded. How could this be related to it? Moreover, could these lowly roots of the blood tree be compared to it? After hearing Yunchujia's words, the one-eyed shark was filled with grief and indignation. It wished that it could immediately go to the blood tree and fight to the death. However, the most important thing now was how to remove these bloodlines from the pups' bodies. "Do you have a way to remove the blood veins?" The one-eyed shark's tone was much gentler than before. There was even a hint of anticipation in it. Yunchujo rubbed her chin and thought about it. This was really not an easy thing to do. The most direct way was naturally to cut open the baby's back and remove the blood veins to destroy them. However, if she used a knife to cut open the baby's back, the blood veins would definitely wander around. If it was not done properly, it would take the baby's life, then the gains would not be worth the losses. Yunchujo told the one-eyed shark about her worries, and the one-eyed shark was also dumbfounded. That's right, then what should she do? Could she only watch helplessly? Just as Yunchujo was at a loss of what to do, the cat cub in the spiritual beast bag, or more accurately, the white tiger, suggested with the intention of atoning for her sins, "Little fairy, can't you just think of a way to prevent the blood veins from wandering?" "Nonsense, if I had a way to prevent the blood veins from wandering, I wouldn't have to worry. You're acting like you didn't say anything," Yunchujo said in an annoyed tone. Yoon Chujo had also finished yelling at the kitten, and she suddenly had an idea. Yes, she could completely use a silver needle to fix the blood veins, as long as she moved fast enough, before the blood veins broke free. She could totally pull it out from the back of the kitten. Moreover, she found that the bloodline basically did not have any intelligence. It was just seeking benefits and avoiding harm. As long as she was fast enough, she could totally achieve her goal. Yoon Chujo told the one-eyed shark about her idea. The one-eyed shark did not agree at the beginning. It felt that it was too risky. It would be good if it succeeded, but once she was a little slower, the bloodline would continue to drift away. It might even kill the kitten. However, after Yoon Chujo's boasting, the one-eyed shark still agreed. Forget it, let's take a gamble. Therefore, Yoon Chujo directly used the unconscious baby as the first test subject. She took out a 3-inch-long silver needle from her storage ring and gestured its length. She felt that it was enough to temporarily stabilize the bloodline. A hint of ruthlessness flashed in her eyes as she suddenly stabbed towards the middle of the bloodline. Chapter 40:11 Single Eye. Almost at the same time that the bloodline was pierced, the kitchen knife in Yoon Chujo's hand had already cut the back of the baby. At the same time, her other hand grabbed one end of the bloodline, pulled out the silver needle, and pulled out the bloodline. The one-eyed shark stared at the bloodline in Yoon Chujo's hand with its mouth agape. It was surprisingly the root of a blood tree, but it was much smaller than the other roots. The root struggled in Yoon Chujo's hand, trying to pierce through Yoon Chujo's skin. Yoon Chujo sneered. She would not give it a chance to pierce through her skin. Even if it was lucky enough to enter her body, it would be feeding the Guai Chao and the other two. Yoon Chujo's right hand flashed with red light, and the bloodline was instantly burned into ashes by the small flame. Although the power of the small flame was limited in the water, it was still effortless to burn the bloodline. The one-eyed shark was dumbfounded by what it saw. Yoon Chujo's series of actions were really too fast. However, only this little girl could remove the bloodline from the body of the baby so quickly. Yoon Chujo took out a pill to stop the bleeding and fed it to the baby. Although the wound on the back looked quite scary, the self-healing ability of the demon beast was very strong, and the baby would probably be alive and kicking soon. Yoon Chujo looked at the one-eyed shark. How is it? Do you want to continue? The one-eyed shark nodded quickly. Of course it had to continue. As long as it took out all the blood veins on the baby's back, they would no longer have to be threatened by the blood tree. However, Yoon Chujo did not take action immediately. Instead, she looked at it with a smile and said, "As you can see, my method is very good. However, it consumes both physical strength and medicinal pills. Most importantly, I have to prevent the blood veins from attacking me. You have to show some sincerity, right?" The one-eyed shark was dumbfounded. What did he mean? How did this style change so quickly? Didn't he look like he was ready to discuss it? Why were they talking about conditions now? Single Eye, don't be angry. I'm absolutely different from that old thing blood tree. I'm just trying to protect myself. After all, how can we 7 little weaklings be a match for a group of behemoths like you? If I save all the cubs and you turn against me, where are we going to cry? So let's establish a temporary contract first. When we work together to destroy Blood Tree and safely escape, I will definitely cancel the contract. Yoon Chujo said sincerely. Single Eye? The Single Eye shark was furious. It hated being called Single Eye the most. It had a high status among the sharks. Usually no shark dared to call it that. It did not expect this little girl to actually call it Single Eye. It was really angered to death. However, even though it was angry, the Single Eye shark still reluctantly established a temporary contract with Yoon Chujo. There was no other reason. Other than this little girl, no one else could save these cubs. Moreover, even if this little girl had bad intentions and wanted to take its life, its death was not worth it. As long as it could save these cubs, it would be fine. The reason why Yoon Chujo chose to contract the one-eyed shark was firstly because she felt that its status was not low. Secondly, after coming into contact with it, she found that the one-eyed shark was more reasonable. With it as a medium of communication, it would be easier for her to proceed to the next step. After the contract was completed, Yun Chujo began to take out the bloodlines from the other cubs. Other than a few that were slightly flawed, the rest of the process was very smooth. The reason why there were flaws was that some of the blood veins actually broke the body into two pieces. Fortunately, Yun Chujo was prepared and used another silver needle to fix it. In the end, she still took out the blood veins from the pups' bodies. Chapter 40:12. She did it. Yun Chujo took out all the blood veins on the back of the cubs and burned them. She leaned against a reef, feeling a little exhausted. Although it did not consume much spiritual power and physical strength, it was easy for people to feel tired when they suddenly relaxed because they had to be highly focused. This was also because she had the water repellent bead. Otherwise, she would not have been able to stay underwater for so long. The one-eyed shark also realized this, but it obediently did not ask. This little girl seemed to have many secrets. Other things aside, the flames in her palm were a little strange. The cubs also gradually woke up. Although they could feel the pain in their backs, they realized that the bloodlines that had tortured them were gone. They immediately swam around Yun Chujo excitedly. Yun Chujo rested for a while and then said to the one-eyed shark, "In order to prevent the blood tree from attacking these cubs again, bring them to the surface of the sea." The one-eyed shark felt that what Yun Chujo said made sense. It immediately asked the bloodthirsty iron skin shark, who was responsible for protecting the cubs, to escort the cubs to the surface of the sea. It swam at the back of the team with Yun Chujo. The cubs would occasionally turn around and swim to Yun Chujo's side. They would even use their heads to gently touch Yun Chujo to express their intimacy. In the end, Yun Chujo could only swim to the middle of the cubs and swim to the surface of the sea under their escort. The one-eyed shark could not help but smile bitterly. From the looks of it, the little girl did not need to establish a contract with it at all. If they were to turn hostile, the cubs would probably not agree to it. At this moment on the surface of the sea, Zhao Hui and the others were sitting on pins and needles. They were practically itching for it. The bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks were also a little irritated. A few of them even used their tails to ram into the big ship a few times, almost scaring Zhao Hui and the others to death. They felt that if Yun Chujo did not return, these bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks would probably unleash their ferocious nature and eat them up. Just as they were fidgeting, the waves in the distance churned, and a few bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks emerged from the water. Soon after, several young bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks also emerged from the water, and the junior sister Yun that they had been longing for was riding on the one-eyed shark and waving her claws at them. Zhao Hui and the others were dumbfounded at first, and then tears almost fell. They were saved. Although they didn't know how junior sister Yun did it, since she was able to ride on the back of the one-eyed shark, it meant that she must have gained the recognition of the one-eyed shark. Whether they could defeat the blood tree or not, they at least had a way out. The bloodthirsty iron-skinned shark's attention was not on Yun Chujo, but on the lively cubs. Although they did not know that the blood veins on the backs of the cubs had been removed, hearing their happy cries, they knew that the little girl had most likely done it. Of course, there was one person, Noah Shark, who was extremely depressed. The one-eyed shark felt aggrieved. This little girl was too mean. After swimming for a while, she said that her strength was exhausted and that she could not swim anymore. The cubs scrambled to carry her. As an elder, could it watch the injured cubs carry the little girl? Therefore, the final result was that she became the smelly girl's mount. The leader of the bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks could not wait to welcome her. When it saw that although there was a wound on the back of the cubs, there was no longer any bloodline, it could not help but look up at the sky and wail, "God bless." The bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks were finally saved. Chapter 40:13. The sorrowful cries of the sharks. Following the sorrowful cries of the leader of the bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks, all the bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks on the surface of the sea raised their heads to the sky and cried sorrowfully. At this moment, they finally had the opportunity to vent their pent-up anger and resentment from the past few days. It was not easy for the bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks to breed offspring. If these cubs died prematurely, there would not be any new cubs born for decades. That was why they were threatened by the blood tree. The cubs also responded to the sorrowful wails of the elders with their tender voices. Although they did not know much about what the elders had done for them, it did not prevent them from feeling the repressed grief and indignation. Yun Chujo sighed silently. Let's see. Whether it was humans or demonic beasts, they had to become stronger. Otherwise, they could only be controlled by humans. When Blood Tree heard the loud and mournful cry, it was shocked and uncertain. Could it be that the stinky girl really did it? How did she do it? If it lost control of these bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks, it would not be able to hunt more demonic beasts and humans. This stinky girl really deserved to die. Although Blood Tree was very annoyed, it thought about it. Even if the sharks broke away from its control, it would not be a big deal. Even if the few humans and the sharks joined hands, they would not be able to do anything to it. After all, it could not use its spiritual power in the area covered by its roots. Moreover, those bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks could not leave the deep-sea area, so they could not pose a threat to it. With this thought, the Blood Tree felt a little more at ease. Anyway, as long as the golden dragon incense was around, there would be cultivators who would come to die. It was not in a hurry. One day it would break free from this damn restraint. At the same time, Yun Chujo was also discussing with the sharks about how to destroy the Blood Tree. The one-eyed shark acted as a translator and kept feeding the shark's opinions back to Yun Chujo. We have no way to go ashore to deal with the Blood Tree. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been threatened by it. We would have forced it to detoxify long ago. Moreover, even if we can go ashore, the roots of the Blood Tree will restrict spiritual power wherever it goes. We are not its match even if we go up. Little girls, why don't you leave this place? Well, swim to the deep sea and let it go. Chen Bufan and the others also felt that it was a good idea to leave this place temporarily. They were not a match for the Blood Tree alone, so they might as well go back to the sect and ask for help. Yun Chujo thought for a moment and said, of course, I want to leave as well. However, this Blood Tree is very strange. It might cause a bigger disaster in the future. It's better to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. In particular, the method it uses to control the young sharks is too sinister. Perhaps it will soon find a replacement for the sharks. At that time, it's probably useless no matter how far the sharks hide. Of course, everything I said is under the premise of ensuring our own safety. Let me think about it first. If there isn't a perfect plan, then it's not too late for us to retreat. Yun Chujia's words moved the sharks. She was right. If the Blood Tree used the same method to control other sea beasts, then all the sea beasts in the Lost Sea would suffer. Moreover, they hated the Blood Tree. It would be best if they could kill the Blood Tree. Yun Chujo let the one-eyed shark take her to the bottom of the sea again. She wanted to see the situation below the Blood Sand Island at a close distance. The one-eyed shark naturally would not refuse and carried Yun Chujo to the bottom of the sea. According to what Yun Chujo knew, there were only 3 types of islands. One was a protruding land that was directly connected to the Earth's crust. The second type was a coral island, which was formed from the accumulation of coral bones. The third type was a volcanic island, which was formed after the lava from the volcano cooled down. So, which is this Blood Sand Island? Chapter 4014. The main body of the Blood Tree. While Yun Chujo was thinking, the one-eyed shark said, the Blood Sand Island is right in front of us. Although the roots of the Blood Tree won't easily spread in the sea, it's better for us to stay far away just in case. Yun Chujo looked up and saw an island in the distance. However, that island was floating in the sea. To be exact, it was fixed to the bottom of the sea by several chains. Just as Yun Chujo was surprised. The one-eyed shark said from the side, originally, this Blood Sand Island was connected to the bottom. I don't know what happened, but a few months ago, it suddenly broke into 2 pieces from the middle, and then these chains appeared. Yun Chujo was surprised and remembered that the Blood Tree had said that if it absorbed enough spiritual power, it would break free from the chains. Could it be that the Blood Tree's so-called breaking free was to break free from these chains? Yun Chujo sorted out her train of thought. According to the one-eyed shark, the Blood Sand Island was peaceful previously, which meant that the Blood Tree was originally suppressed under the sea, and for some unknown reason, it broke free of a part of the chains. That was why it appeared on the Blood Sand Island. Once these chains were all broken, the blood tree would completely regain its freedom. Yun Chujo frowned. Logically speaking, these chains should have locked the blood tree, but why did they lock the entire Blood Sand Island? Yun Chujo thought about it, and a strange thought arose in her mind. Could it be that the entire Blood Sand Island was the main body of the blood tree? Although Yun Chujo felt that this thought was somewhat inconceivable, in order to verify her own thoughts, she released Dehua. When the one-eyed shark saw Dehua, it was dumbfounded. This was the legendary spiritual beast, right? But it was just a little piglet? What kind of attack power did this thing have? However, in the next moment, it changed its mind because Dehua had turned black. The one-eyed shark was frightened by Dehua's huge figure and shivered. It thought to itself, this little girl really doesn't show her true colors. However, what did she want to do by releasing this spiritual beast? Dehua, go and attack that floating island. Remember not to touch those chains, Yun Chujo instructed. The one-eyed shark was even more confused now. Was this little girl crazy? Although the blood tree grew on the Blood Sand Island, what was the point of attacking the Blood Sand Island? It originally thought that this little girl was smart, but now it turned out that she was also stupid. While the single-eyed shark was thinking, Dehua had already begun to attack the Blood Sand Island. At first, there was nothing unusual, but soon, the roots of the blood tree spread out and began to counterattack. After Yun Chujo let the single-eyed shark carry her in retreat, she sneered and said, "Single-eye, do you understand now? This entire Blood Sand Island is the main body of the blood tree. However, first it is to trap sea beasts and cultivators, and second it is to isolate the seawater so it is wrapped in a layer of outer shell. We only need to peel off its shell to see its main body. By then we can completely destroy it." The one-eyed shark was confused. It asked in puzzlement, "What? What do you mean?" Yun Chujo could only explain, in other words, the blood tree was suppressed to the bottom of the sea for some reason. However, it might have been too long and the seal was loosened. It thought of ways to gather the rocks and sand below to hide its main body. Finally, a few months ago, its seal loosened again. Only then did it reveal a part of its true form on the Blood Sand Island. You will know what happened after that. As for the small island that you mentioned, it broke into two parts. The blood tree must have broken its outer shell when it broke free from its true form. That was why you misunderstood that it was the mountain range that broke. Chapter 40 15 Blood Trees Conspiracy. The one-eyed shark finally understood what Yun Chujo meant. It widened its eyes in surprise. If this little girl's guess was correct, wouldn't they be able to take revenge themselves? Yun Chujo let Dehua attack a few more times to confirm her judgment. She immediately rode the one-eyed shark back to the surface of the sea. After the one-eyed shark told everyone about Yun Chujio's judgment, the leader of the group of sharks immediately brought the group of sharks to the bottom of the sea, and began to besiege the Blood Sand Island that was chained up. Although Zhao Hui and the others did not use water-repellent beads, Yun Chujo gave them a lot of water-repellent beads, so they also dived into the water to attack the Blood Sand Island together. The group of sharks hated the blood tree to the core. They used all their strength to attack. Even the young ones kept attacking with water arrows from behind. Even in their dreams, the blood tree did not expect Yun Chujo to see through its tricks. Although its shell was strong, it could not withstand the sharks' attacks. Soon, the rocks and mud attached to the blood tree fell to the bottom of the sea, revealing the blood tree's true form. The blood tree waved its roots crazily and shouted angrily, "I'll give you one more chance. Leave this place immediately. I'll let bygones be bygones. If you're still stubborn, I'll kill you all together." Blood tree's threat was obviously effective. The leader of the sharks hesitated. Yun Chujo sneered, "Don't listen to its nonsense. If it really had that ability, it would have broken free from the restraints here long ago. Don't forget one thing. If you don't get rid of the roots, there will be trouble in the future. If we don't kill this ugly monster today, there will definitely be trouble in the future. If you're worried, just keep the cubs away. The rest of you attack." The leader of the sharks thought about it and agreed. Even if the blood tree really wanted to fight to the death, as long as they could keep the cubs alive, it wouldn't matter even if they died. Thus, the sharks continued to attack. Seeing that the threat was ineffective, the blood tree could only continue to fight with the sharks. blood tree gradually lost its ability to resist. Suddenly, many tiny red roots shot out from the main trunk of blood tree. Yun Chujio was shocked. Don't let those roots enter your bodies. Those roots are the things that entered the bodies of the young. When the sharks heard Yun Chujio's warning, they hurriedly dodged or used water arrows to shatter the red roots. Only a few bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks were pierced by the red roots. Yun Chujio was afraid that things would change, so she ordered the sharks to continue attacking while she quickly took the one-eyed sharks and began to remove the red roots from the bodies of the bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks. Unexpectedly, when she was taking one of the red roots, the red root drilled into Yun Chujio's left palm at an extremely fast speed. At the same time, the chained body of the blood tree shattered into powder. Yun Chujio's arrogant voice came from within the body of the blood tree. Damned girl. You've ruined this lord's plan. This lord can use your body to escape from the restraints, haha. Zhao Hui and the others were stunned for a moment before they reacted. The reason why the blood tree had mixed its soul with the red roots was to possess her. It was over. Now that the blood tree had entered Junior Sister Yun's body, Junior Sister Yun would definitely be possessed. At that time, wouldn't Junior Sister Yun become the blood tree? The sharks were also dumbfounded. No one had expected such a turn of events. Then the problem came. What should they do now? If they wanted to eradicate the root of the problem, they should undoubtedly kill Yun Chujio. This way they wouldn't give the blood tree the chance to possess her and then completely destroy her. However, Yun Chujio would definitely not survive this. Chapter 40:16 had been eaten by Guai Chao. The sharks began to quarrel fiercely. Although Zhao Hui and the others could not understand the sharks' cries, they could guess a thing or two. In fact, they were also very conflicted. They naturally did not want Yun Chujio to die, but if she was possessed by the blood tree, then Yun Chujio would not be Yun Chujio anymore. The sharks finally came to a conclusion. Several bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks surrounded Yun Chujio. It was clear that they wanted to kill Yun Chujio before the blood tree successfully possessed her, so as to avoid any future trouble. The one-eyed shark could not bear to do so, but there were too many sharks that claimed to kill Yun Chujio. Could not stop them at all. It could only watch from the side dejectedly. At this moment, the cubs that were hiding in the distance rushed over with sharp roars. They used their mouths and tails to push the bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks that surrounded Yun Chujio. The cubs' actions not only shocked the sharks, but also Zhao Hui and the others. At the same time, a sense of shame welled up in their hearts. They didn't even have the conscience of these cubs. Even if Junior Sister Yun was in danger of being possessed, as long as there was a glimmer of hope, they shouldn't give up. Thus Zhao Hui and the others stood in front of Yun Chujio. If the shark group attacked, then they could only fight to the death with the shark group. The sharks were obviously shocked by the actions of the cubs. They did not have the awareness of Zhao Hui and the others, but the cubs protected Yun Chujio, Zhao Hui, and the others in the middle. They had no way to attack Yun Chujio at all. The situation was at a stalemate for a moment. The blood tree, which had already entered Yun Chujio's body, was overjoyed when it saw the situation. As long as it entered this wretched girl's spiritual sense and swallowed her spiritual sense, it could successfully possess her. After that, it would be able to use these idiots as cover and escape. Just as the blood tree was enjoying itself, it could not help but slide towards the direction of its dantian. The blood tree was shocked. The direction it was heading towards was the wretched girl's head. How could it slide down? It desperately tried to swim upwards. However, it was unable to resist the huge force coming from its dantian. Very quickly it slid down to Yun Chujio's dantian. Before it could even figure out what was going on, it was pressed down by the leaves of the Guai Chao. Then the Guai Chao began to nibble away at it. Guai Chao thought that it was because of this good-for-nothing that it was scolded. It could use it to make up for the trauma in its heart. Before the blood tree could even cry for help, it was nibbled away by the Guai Chao. Yun Chujio had been watching coldly from the side. She was confident enough to deal with the blood tree. Even if the blood tree could swim into her spiritual sense, she could still command the weapon spirits to attack it, let alone the Guai Chao. Thinking of the weapon spirits, Yun Chujo could not help but feel a little guilty. Those weapon spirits were all abducted from the ancient sword tomb, and they were all offensive spirit weapons. There were even several immortal swords. It did not seem good for her to occupy them just like that. Of course, the reason why Qi Ling said that he was not too good was not because he felt sorry for those weapon spirits, but because he felt sorry for himself. It was really a waste to just leave so many good things lying around. She had to think of a way to make full use of them when she had the chance. Yun Chujo glanced at Zhao Hui and the others and the shark group again. Finally, her gaze fell on those cubs. These little things were still very naive and cute. It was not in vain for her to save them. Yun Chujo saw that the strange grass had already swallowed all of the blood tree. Then she said slowly, "All right, you don't have to consider whether you want to kill me or not. It's most likely because my blood is poisonous. The blood tree is already dead." Chapter 40:17 was rich. As soon as Yun Chujia's words left her mouth, both Zhao Hui and Sha Kun looked at her suspiciously. That was because they really couldn't tell if it was Yun Chujio or Blood Tree who was speaking. Yun Chujio rolled her eyes and said to Li Zhuangji and the others, "Senior brother Li, senior brother Chun, I still remember the spiritual stones you owe me. Don't tell me you still think that I'll go back on my words after I die." Yun Chujio looked at the single-eye shark again. "Single eye, we have established a temporary contract. If I am possessed by the blood tree, can you not feel it? Idiot." The moment Yun Chujio said those words, both Zhao Hui and the sharks immediately believed that she was Yun Chujio because the only one who could say such derogatory words was that pervert Yun Chujio, especially the one-eyed shark. She could feel that the temporary contract was still there. This was enough to prove that Yun Chujio was not possessed. It immediately heaved a sigh of relief in its heart. This crisis was finally over. Yun Chujio went to the place where the blood tree was originally locked and circled around. When she realized that the thick chains were all 10,000-year-old black iron, she almost went crazy with joy. Because the blood tree had already turned into ashes, the array formation of the iron chains had also been broken by itself. Yun Chujio easily put the iron chains into her bag one by one. Although Zhao Hui and the others were envious, they did not have the face to compete with Yun Chujio. Instead, they helped her to drag the 10,000-year-old black iron chains. The cubs kept circling around Yun Chujio. One of them gave Yun Chujio something. Yun Chujio looked at it and exclaimed, "Hey! Isn't this the legendary white ambergris?" It turned out that the blood tree had collected a lot of ambergris to attract cultivators. Once it was destroyed, the ambergris naturally fell to the bottom of the sea. In order to please Yun Chujio, the cubs picked the most beautiful color and gave it to Yun Chujio. Yun Chujio's eyes immediately lit up. She immediately asked the cubs to help her find the scattered ambergris. The cubs were naturally very willing to help her. Some adult bloodthirsty iron-skinned sharks even helped her look for it. Li Zhuangji and the others looked at it and suddenly felt as if their hearts were going crazy. Back then, they had risked great danger to pick up a few pieces of brown ambergris on the beach. Each and every one of them was about to go crazy with joy. However, junior sister Yun had easily obtained a few sacks of ambergris. It was simply infuriating. After cleaning up the battlefield, everyone floated to the surface of the sea. The group of sharks returned the large ship that they had dragged down to Yun Chujio and the others. After everyone boarded the ship, Yun Chujio shed a few crocodile tears and then left the group of sharks that were reluctant to part. On the large ship, Li Zhuangji and the others who had survived the disaster collapsed on the deck. The experiences these few days were simply soul-stirring. They had narrowly escaped death several times, and it was simply extremely dangerous. They were filled with gratitude towards Yun Chujio. If junior sister Yun had not put aside their past grudges and saved them, they would have died hundreds of times already. Just as they were about to solemnly express their gratitude towards Yun Chujio. However, they saw Yun Chujio take out a small notebook and read, "Li Zhuangji, 10 double-tailed jumping fish, 3 cracked clams, and 2 giant pincer prawns. Consider it a friendship price, just give me 100,000 high-grade spirit stones. Chun Bufan, 8 double-tailed jumping fish. In order to save you, I used 2 foil buckets of king-level fire essence beast earth fire. I'll give you a 99 to 81 discount. Each of you owes me 1 million high-grade spirit stones. Also, the waterproof beads I lent you before were quite expensive. Are you paying or borrowing? Li Zhuangji and the others. Forget it. It seemed that there was no need to be grateful, because they would have to work hard for her for the rest of their lives. Chapter 40:18. Happy butt-face Yun Chujo looked at the few of them who wanted to cry but had no tears. The corners of her mouth curled up. Although gratitude could last for a period of time, it was far less profound than debt. Moreover, gratitude was too heavy and made people numb. It was more suitable for her to be a creditor. Therefore, under the coercion of He Xinjiu, Li Zhuangji and the others wrote down the loan slip. The amount written on it made their hearts bleed. They would not be able to repay it in a few decades. Yun Chujo was satisfied and kept the loan slip. Then she painfully took out a few brown golden dragon jaw sticks and stuffed them into Li Zhuangzi's hands. Just use these to hand in the mission. I'm quite generous. The corners of Li Zhuangji and the others' eyes twitched. Generous? Those bloodthirsty iron skin sharks had helped her collect a few sacks of golden dragon jaw sticks. Moreover, the quality was high quality. These few pieces were simply a drop in the bucket. However, even if these few pieces were sold, they would still be worth a lot of spirit stones. She could be considered to have some conscience. Compared to her, Yun Chujo was practically a slave who had turned over a new leaf and was singing. Whether it was cooking or being on duty, she did not need to do anything. All she needed to do was to sit on the recliner and bask in the sun. She simply felt great. However, this fellow still had some worries in his heart. He did not know if the Divine Devil Hall and the 9 pavilions would have any tricks up their sleeves. He could only deal with them as they came. They could not hide in the nameless sword sect just because of unknown dangers. If that was the case, there was no way to increase their combat experience. However, the next few days went very smoothly. There were no abnormalities, and everyone arrived on land safely. The fishermen originally thought that Yun Chujo and the others had lost their lives, but they did not expect them to return safely. Yun Chujo bought a lot of sea goods and kept them for her to eat at the nameless sword sect. When Li Zhuangji and the others thought of the sky-high price of the sea goods that Yun Chujo sold to them, they immediately bought a lot of them to avoid being cheated by Yun Chujo in the future. In this way, the fishermen were extremely happy. They sold almost all of their stocks and made a small fortune. The group left the beach on foot. They only needed to walk another 100 miles before they could use their flying spirit tools. Yun Chujo narrowed her eyes. If someone wants to ambush us, this 100 miles is the most suitable place to set up an ambush, so everyone should be careful. Although Li Zhuangji and the others' attitudes towards Yun Chujo had changed a lot, they still felt that she was being alarmist. They were the disciples of the nameless sword sect, so who would dare to ambush them? The previously noisy Divine Devil Hall had vanished without a trace due to the joint search by the various major factions. Even if the remaining factions were at odds with the nameless sword sect, they would not openly attack the disciples of the nameless sword sect. Seeing that they did not take it to heart, Yun Chujo immediately summoned Buttface. Although this fellow was a little useless, he was very alert. If there was an ambush nearby, he would definitely be able to discover it. Buttface was suffocating inside the spirit beast bag. Now that he was finally released, he was naturally having fun on the ground. Although he could not speak due to the presence of others, he could still communicate with Yun Chujo using his spiritual sense. Little fairy, I miss you to death. Congratulations on making a windfall again. I have to say that you are getting worse and worse. Buttface's eyes were full of flattery. Yun Chujo had already gotten used to this guy's strange way of thinking. She just curled the corners of her mouth and ignored this idiot. Buttface did not mind. He was jumping around like a little girl. Zhao Hui smiled and said, Junior Sister Yun, although your spirit pet is just an ordinary spirit dog, it has a lively personality. It's not bad to use it to relieve boredom. Buttface glared at Zhao Hui with his dog eyes. He thought to himself, fuck, why didn't those drifters kill you back then? How dare they talk about Lord Buttface? Chapter 40. Spiritual pets came to help. Yun Chujo caught a glimpse of Buttface's resentful eyes and said with a chuckle, "Senior Brother Zhao, you're right. Buttface doesn't have any other abilities other than to relieve my boredom. He's simply trash." Buttface? Yun Chujo raised her eyebrows and looked at Buttface when she saw him glaring at her. Buttface immediately said eagerly, "Little fairy, you're really right when you say it like that. As long as what little fairy said is all right, wrong, right? I'd rather be a little trash by your side for the rest of my life." The corner of Yun Chujia's mouth twitched. In the future, if this Buttface wanted to pursue his wife, no spiritual pet would be able to escape. This guy was really too flexible. While everyone was chatting and laughing, Buttface stopped in his tracks. "Little fairy, there is an ambush about 5 miles ahead. And there are quite a number of people." Yun Chujo frowned and immediately said to everyone, "Turn around and run back quickly." Although Li Zhuangji and the others felt that Yun Chujo was somewhat inexplicable, they did not have the time to think too much and immediately ran wildly with Yun Chujo. They did not run far before many people wearing black masks rushed out from the bushes on both sides of the road and chased closely behind. When Li Zhuangji and the others turned their heads and saw it, their heads buzzed. Junior sister Yun had really said it. There was actually someone who had set up an ambush to kill them. Yun Chujo calculated in her heart that there were more than 100 people chasing after them. If they fought head-on, they had no chance of winning. She might as well lure them to the sea. When the time came, they might have a chance of winning. Therefore, she brought Li Zhuangji and the others and ran toward the sea. However, Buttface quickly said, "Little fairy, there are many people coming from the front. I'm afraid that they have already made arrangements." Yun Chujo clenched her fists. That's right. Since they wanted to set up an ambush, they naturally had to think carefully. If they wanted to block them from the front and back, they could only run to the two sides. However, there were ambushes coming from the left and right sides from not far away, forming an encirclement. When Li Zhuangji and the others saw that there were 500 to 600 people encircling them, their faces turned pale. It was over. It was really over. These people wearing the black masks of the Divine Devil Hall were obviously people from the Divine Devil Hall. They didn't expect that they would actually dare to come out and hurt people under the massacre of the various major powers. They were truly arrogant to the extreme. The leader of the group, a man wearing a silver mask, didn't say anything. He only waved his hand at his subordinates, and everyone rushed towards Yun Chujo and the other three. Yun Chujo and the other three surrounded each other, and Yun Chujo immediately shouted, "Set up the sword formation." The 7 of them immediately set up the 7-star sword formation, and fought with their lives on the line. However, not to mention that they had not trained properly previously, even the 7 successive disciples were not a match for these hundreds of people. In a short while, other than Yun Chujo, the other 6 people had already died. Yun Chujo had no choice but to release all the spiritual pets in her spiritual beast bag. Now she could only give it her all. Whether it was the other party, Li Zhuangji, or the others, they were all very shocked when they saw Yun Chujia's spiritual pets. These spiritual pets looked very ordinary, but they all had extraordinary abilities. Xiao Hanio, who was as fat as a ball, spat out extremely powerful flames. In an instant, the spiritual energy barrier of the other party was completely burned. The roars of the 4 half-tailed Shaohong foxes had a seductive effect. If one was not careful, it would cause one's spiritual sense to be in a trance. The little black mouse could send a person flying with a single swipe of its claw. One could see how powerful it was. There was also that little bastard, that little mushroom, and that group of weird-looking rabbits. What surprised them the most was that spiritual pet that was like a kitten. Its movements were as fast as a phantom. Once it was scratched by its sharp claws, it would instantly tear a person apart. Chapter 40. Puppet. Everyone was surprised. What the hell were these things? Besides, how could one person have so many spiritual pets? Yun Chujo felt it was a pity. It would have been better if this place wasn't restricted to flying. She could still release those giant winged birds, but releasing them now would only be suicide. Even with the help of the spiritual pets, she had killed more than 100 enemies. However, the difference in strength between the two sides was too great. Whether it was the spiritual pets or Yun Chujio and the others, they were already injured. They probably wouldn't be able to hold on for more than 10 minutes. Buttface was extremely annoyed that he was only a good-for-nothing now. He reminded Little Fairy, release the puppets. It wasn't that Yun Chujio didn't think of releasing the puppets before, but because of the self-destruction of puppet number 1, number 2, and number 3, she had a shadow in her heart. She was afraid that if she released puppet number 4 and puppet number 5, she would make the same mistake again. But now she had no other choice. Yun Chujio immediately released puppet number 4 and puppet number 5. This time everyone was shocked. They had never seen a puppet with intelligence. Where did this Yun Chujio come from? However, even so, Yun Chujio and the others still had no way to get rid of the enemy. The other party was obviously well prepared. They were afraid that something might go wrong, so they sent so many people to kill them. When the silver-masked man saw that Yun Chujio and the others were basically unable to fight back, he could not help but sneer. Although the process was a little off, the result was always good. None of these people could survive. Yun Chujio originally had another trump card, which was to awaken her strength under stimulation. However, she didn't know if it was because she wasn't stimulated too much. No matter how hard she stared, there were no signs of darkening. She was so anxious that she was about to hit the wall. Also, that little piece of trash, the Great Void Mirror, went into hibernation at the critical moment. It was simply a fucking useless thing. Could it be that she could only die here today? After Dog 2 limped and killed an enemy, it shouted, Little Fairy, don't you still have 3 puppets? Quickly take them out. Do you want to leave a cup behind? Yun Chujio did not have the time to argue with Dog 2 now. She immediately took out the 3 puppets. If it was not for Dog 2's reminder, she would have forgotten about these 3 puppets. However, she felt that it was useless because these 3 puppets were made of ordinary fine iron. There was no way that they could be compared to puppet number 4 and puppet number 5. Their strength was inferior to theirs. As expected, the 3 puppets were soon covered in wounds. Yun Chujio and the others were surrounded by them. The silver-masked man sneered and said, Yun Chujio, if you still have any abilities, just use them. None of you will survive today. When you die, your precious puppets and spiritual pets will be mine. Before Yun Chujio could reply, Li Zhuangji shouted in disbelief, Martial Uncle Lu? You are Martial Uncle Lu? You actually defected to the Divine Devil Hall? A trace of annoyance flashed across the silver-masked man's eyes. He originally did not intend to speak, but since the situation was good, he could not hold it in. Thinking of this, the silver-masked man sneered a few times, What Martial Uncle Lu, Martial Uncle Zhang? All of you will die here today. Li Zhuangzi's gaze fell on the silver-masked man's right hand that was holding the sword. The small finger on it was missing a bit. He shook his head in disbelief again. You don't have to deny it. You are Martial Uncle Lu. I don't understand. You usually have a good relationship with my father. Why did you want to kill me? Could it be that you really joined the Divine Devil Hall? Chapter 40-21. The puppet in the sword formation. The silver-masked man suddenly laughed gloomily. Since you've recognized her, I'll let you be the one to understand. This is all in order from the elder. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for not being able to kill Yun Chujio. If you had killed Yun Chujio on the sea, we naturally wouldn't have gone through so much trouble to come up with such a plan. You're really a good-for-nothing who cannot accomplish anything. Li Zhuangzi's face was filled with both shock and anger. He knew that the elder the silver-masked man was talking about was Elder Wan, because the silver-masked man and manager Li were both under Elder Wan. He asked with bloodshot eyes, Aren't you afraid that my father will find out the truth? The silver-masked man sneered. So what if he finds out the truth? Do you think your father would dare to go against the elder? Besides, your father might go down to accompany you soon. Li Zhuangji angrily raised his sword and stabbed at the silver-masked man. The silver-masked man didn't dodge at all. Some of his men had already surrounded Li Zhuangji. If it weren't for Chen Bufan and the others who fought to the death, Li Zhuangji would have already been killed. The silver-masked man snorted contemptuously and said, "You have already learned the truth. Now go to hell." Yun Chujo gritted her teeth. She felt that the anger in her body had begun to gather. All she needed was an opportunity to burst out. She was really worried to death. Just as Yun Chujo felt at this time, the 3 puppets that were already riddled with injuries actually picked up the 3 treasured swords on the ground and said to the stunned Yun Chujo, "Sword, array." The voices of the 3 puppets were unclear. Yun Chujo also guessed that they should be talking about the sword array. Yun Chujio's face was filled with confusion. However, when she saw the position of the 3 puppets, her heart trembled and she did not hesitate anymore. She asked the puppets number 4, number 5 and Meng Yanshou to join in, and she took the position of the pivot. Zhao Hui and the others realized that Yun Chujo and the puppets were using the 7-star sword formation, and they were completely confused. Putting aside whether these puppets knew how to use the sword formation or not, even if they knew how to use it, so what? Didn't they not use the 7-star sword formation before? But it was still useless. Of course, a few thoughts flashed through their minds. Those 3 puppets could actually speak? That seemingly useless rabbit actually knew how to use a sword? Of course, these thoughts were fleeting. This was because they and the other spiritual pets still had to deal with the enemies that kept charging at them, so they did not have the time to think about it. The silver-masked man and those people wearing black masks did not take the sword formation formed by Yun Chujo and the puppets seriously. Wasn't it just the 7-star sword formation? What was so great about it? However, when the sword formation was activated, they were shocked to discover that it did not seem to be the 7-star sword formation. This was because its power was several times stronger than the 7-star sword formation. Not only did the power of the attack increase greatly, the main reason was that the defensive ability was too monstrous. There was actually not the slightest flaw that could be used to attack. The entire sword formation was like a malignant star that reaped the lives of people. In an instant, it had already killed dozens of people. This was also because the puppets did not know fatigue at all, and the Nightmare Beast and Yun Chujo were both monstrous. The power of the sword formation was magnified several times. The Silver Man's original calm had also disappeared. At this time, half of their troops had already died. If the stalemate continued, they might really let these people escape. Therefore, he immediately commanded a portion of his men to surround and capture Li Zhuangji and the others. He planned to capture Li Zhuangji and the others as hostages so that he was not afraid that Yun Chujo would not give in. Chapter 40-22. What were those things? Yun Chujo was so smart that she immediately discovered the silver-masked man's intentions. She immediately commanded the sword formation to break out of the encirclement and protect Li Zhuangji and his spiritual pets. At this moment, Meng Yanshou's treasured sword broke due to excessive force. Yun Chujo suddenly recalled her several immortal swords and immediately summoned them, handing them over to Meng Yanshou and the 5 puppets. It was rare for these immortal swords to come out for a breather. Naturally, they went all out, displaying the might of their immortal swords. With the immortal swords, the power of the 7-star sword formation increased by a lot. Yun Chujo immediately shouted at Li Zhuangji and the others, "Retreat to the seaside." Although Li Zhuangji and the others were worried about Yun Chujio's safety, they knew that if they were caught by the other party, they would be in a passive position. Therefore, they retreated while retreating towards the seaside. The silver-masked man was so anxious that he clenched his teeth. Unfortunately, Yun Chujo and the other 7-star sword formation was really difficult to deal with, and it forcefully slowed down their footsteps. Finally, before Yun Chujo was exhausted, everyone arrived at the seaside. The fishermen had long been scared away. They had low spiritual power, so how could they dare to get involved in such a thing? Li Zhuangji called out the big ship, and everyone boarded the big ship and quickly headed towards the deep sea. The silver-masked man was flustered and exasperated as he waved a few palms at the big ship that had gone far away. However, it was useless. They had thought that the ambush was foolproof and did not prepare the ship at all. Now they could only watch as Yun Chujo and the others escaped. "Sir, you don't have to be anxious. They can't keep floating on the sea. They will find a way to get ashore. When the time comes, we can kill them." Besides, we can use this time to dispatch ships and men. We can chase after them and kill them when the time comes. A subordinate said. The silver-masked man felt that what his subordinate said made sense. He could totally mobilize his men and ships to chase after them. Because there were high-level demon beasts in the deep sea, Yun Chuzhou and the others had nowhere to run. As it was forbidden to use talismans here, he immediately sent his men to mobilize his men. However, he felt a little uneasy. He had lost hundreds of men this time. If he still couldn't kill Yun Chuzhou in the end, Elder Wan might not spare him. Therefore, Yun Chuzhou must die. 2 days later, another 300 people rushed over with ships. The subordinate who had delivered the letter earlier said to the silver-masked man with some apprehension, "Sir, the higher-up said that if you can't kill Yun Chuzhou this time, you don't need to return to the sect." The silver-masked man gritted his teeth. He had long expected Elder Wan to be furious. Fortunately, he had enough confidence that he could kill Yun Chuzhou. Immediately, everyone split into 3 large ships and chased after Yun Chuzhou and the others. 2 days later, someone exclaimed, "Look! Isn't that Yun Chuzhou's ship in front of us? Haha, they're dead meat this time." The silver-masked man sneered. "Let's see where you can run to this time." Just as he was thinking, he heard Yun Chuzhou's clear voice coming from the opposite ship. "Hey, that unspeakable thing. I'm warning you, either get lost or die. Choose." The silver-masked man was so angry that he gritted his teeth. What did she mean by shameful thing? At this time, this stupid girl still refused to admit it. She was really courting death. Immediately, the silver-masked man commanded the 3 large ships to move forward at full speed. This time they had no way to escape. However, at this moment, a subordinate shouted in horror, "Then what are those things?" The silver-masked man looked in the direction of the voice and saw many black dorsal fins suddenly appearing in the seawater in all directions. You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.